Well, dude, now that we've gotten your whole life story,
Pretty much, kind of.
or this is just the cliff notes. I want to jump into, now that you've made it, you've got this incredible career that you have dialed yourself into. I mean, you've literally are one of the most accomplished guys that I've talked to. No, for sure. As far as classes and courses and what you've just gone through, I mean, dude, good for you, man. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can probably check as many boxes as you have off. But with all that training, and everything you've gone through, then we start putting it to work, right? So you graduate everything. You got your. I mean, obviously, there's once you go SF, I'm sure that it's endless classes and courses and things that you're constantly learning. Deployment wise,
So I graduated. On whatever Thursday, something like that. I knew I was going to third group. They came in, group commander, group sergeant major talks to you, and then they had the list of where everyone's going. S1 had already put out where everyone's going.
Okay.
So they pulled me aside. I was like, hey, you're going to 1st Battalion. You're leaving on Tuesday. So I fucking go in process group within, like, after graduation. Like, and then Friday, I spent Friday getting on my gear, Monday getting my gear, and then Tuesday I was on a plane to Afghanistan.
What?
Yeah.
That quick?
Yeah.
Was this a good thing or a bad thing?
First time I was deployed. Good.
I mean, was it kind of like a punishment?
Yeah. No, I was like, dude, fuck yeah, I want to go. Like, I was ready to just like get the fuck.
So everybody's already there.
So the battalion that I was going to was already there
in Afghan. They're like, well, you're just gonna go. And so instead of sending you to the rear and waiting, they're just putting you right in Afghan. And then what happened? I mean,
so the way it kind of
probably a good thing because you skipped all the workups, pre-deployment shit. I mean, you're just walking right in.
Well, because they can take new guys and plug them into certain positions. It might not. Some guys go to a team. Some guys go work a battalion for a while. Okay. Because there's so much going on, like in those strike cells and like computer wise, and then there's always a guy that represents each company that's at battalion. So like all the companies are all over the country. All the teams are all over the country. You know, so like you have the AOB, which your operation. So the AOB there is basically like. That's your company is what they call the AOB.
Okay.
So there's 6 teams in the company, and then the AOB itself, the B team is one team. And they're supposed to be all senior guys, but it's just like an ODA where there's like a senior Bravo and a junior Bravo, except the Zulu, the team sergeant, and the team leader are a major, the company commander, and the company sergeant major.
Okay.
And then the warrant officer is usually a CW3.
So you're a fresh special forces guy.
Brand new, don't know shit.
And you're walking straight into Afghan.
Yep. Go to Afghanistan.
What was your position when you got
on
the ground?
When I got there, kind of another blessing in disguise. I didn't know where I was going to go at first. So when I first found out that I was going to be in third group, before we even physically graduated, I went to we did our berets and our tabs already because guys know where they're going. It was just like the graduation
You didn't even
ceremony.
get to enjoy and like soak in like, fuck man, I'm an SF.
Yeah. I mean, but I was like, I was older. Like, I feel like I was more of like, I just need to get, it took me so long too. I was like, I just need to get the fuck out of this course. Like,
okay.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, you got years of classes.
This is like 2 years, dude, 2.5 years. Just like,
okay. So you're ready.
I was so ready, dude.
Okay.
And so I go, when they found out we were going to third group and they gave us like, we had our tabs and it was like, there's probably like a week of like, you do all these things for graduation. I went and got on the third group sergeant major's calendar.
Okay.
Because I felt like as an E7, the right thing to do is get on his calendar, introduce myself, try to figure out where I'm going. Okay. Like, even though I'm a new guy and they might not I just looked at it as like professional courtesy. Like, I'm a sergeant first class, bro. Like, I'm a senior non-commissioned officer. Like, I'm not some E5 that just graduated the Q course. Like, I need to like take my own career into my hands.
For sure.
So I went and talked to him. It was funny. It was Brian Reary, and it was his first day. So he's like, this is the wrong answer, but like, I don't know where you're going. He was like, I just got here. And I was like, all right, sorry. So we ended up just having like a cool, like, hour-long, story of like, what's your career like? And I had my answer. I had my whole packet with me and showed him everything. And he was like, yeah, honestly, his like last thing, he's like, dude, I'm really sorry. He's like, this is the wrong answer. And he's like, I'm not making excuses. He's like, we're deploying. He's like, we're deploying next week. We have this and the other. He's like, S1, the way he kind of explained the assignment. He's like, S1 basically just takes your rank and your MOS and assigns you to the battalion that needs that strength.
Yep.
So there isn't, even though you're a Green Beret, you're not like some specialized dude, right? It's like, no, you're an MOS in a rank.
Got it.
So I had that conversation with him, and then fast forward, he'd come in. They're like, "Hey, whatever you're going to." So then S1 was there, and like, "Well, hey," it was me and two other guys, and one of the kids smoked weed that weekend on purpose, so he didn't have to go. Yeah, I remember that.
Wait, he graduated.
Graduated on Thursday, and then in process is Friday. Gets our gear, supposed to roll out with me on Tuesday night on the plane. And that weekend, when he found out he was going to Afghanistan, he went and smoked. I think he even smoked spice. And like made it a thing where he had it on him and like got caught on purpose. Like it was a whole fucking.
This guy went through all the SF course and everything.
Yeah.
He went through all that bullshit.
Yep.
And smoked spice to not deploy.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know, dude. Like, whatever.
Anyways.
So.
Whoa, that's wild.
So I get on the plane and I'm leaving.
Is the unit already there? Or are you deploying?
The battalion's already there.
How long have they been in?
They had got there, I think in December or January. It's February. The middle. This is like February 13th. Okay. I think it's like 13th.
So they're not. They're still getting.
They just got there.
Okay.
They just like they had ripped out and they started doing missions or whatever.
Okay.
So they I get on the plane, and the plane that's going to Afghanistan is HHC, which is the group commander, the group sergeant major. All of them are going because third group is taking over the Siege of Soda from 7th group.
Okay.
So I'm on that aircraft. I get in at like 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and some dude's like calling out names. He's like, "Hey, Wilber, you're over here." And he takes me down to Camp Montron, where 1st Battalion is, where their SODF is. I get there, and then the next day, I'm like trying to in process or figure out what I'm going to do. And Rob Abernathy is the sergeant major. Rob Abernathy's like, "Hey, man, like, here's the deal. I got a by name request for you because General Thomas is firing their PSD guy, and you're up." I was like, "What do you mean I'm up?" He's like, "Well, 3rd group's up." And he's like, and Brian Rury saying that you're the fucking dude for it. And he's like, he sent me the email. I got all your stuff. He's like, "You did this before. I think it'd be a good fit." And I was just like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me."
So you're not even.
I thought I was like gonna go to a team, bro. Like go to an ODA.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're like, "No, you're gonna go to Camp Alpha, and you're gonna basically represent their group and be the RTO and fucking PSD guy for the lead, the guys in charge of all special operations for Afghanistan."
So now, was that like kind of crushing to you, or?
Yes, I was kind of like I wanted to just go to fucking war. I hadn't been to fucking war since fucking 2006. And it's now 2013.
Damn.
So because I
finally make it. And you got to go.
Right. Because for me, it was like, you know, I got back from Iraq, had a year in Iraq. Then I was a drill sergeant for 2 years. Then I had like a full year of basically like
training,
going to schools, you know, and then I get to the Q course, and then it takes me 2 years to finish the Q course. So now I'm working on year 3 of like. So, you know, I'm like, dude, I just want to go to a fucking team. Like, I don't care what team it is. Like, whoever needs an echo, like, let's go.
And then you get stuck babysitting.
Well, the thing is again, another blessing in disguise. So I get to where I'm going, and two of the coolest things happened to me there. One was I had direct mentorship from one of the guys' names. His name's Jason Ridings. He's a sergeant major right now in 5th group. Just a legend, fucking badass dude. He was an instructor at Sephardic. He ended up being he was just left being the NCOIC at Sephardic. So Sephardic is the premier CQB school in the fucking world, other than OTC for CAT guys. So and even CAT guys even go through Sephardic as well. And then. And that's range 37 where everything's out on Bragg. So sniper school, all that's there. So he taught there, and he was just this legend in B23 and like badass dude, man, just stud. And then I also had all the liaisons. So just like, I forget what they call them, the AST, I think, and I forget what AST meant, but it's basically like you represent your company.
Okay.
So like,
and that's what you're doing now?
No.
Okay.
So in the JOC, like in the J3, they'll have like layers and layers of all the computers and desks with all the monitors.
Oh, yeah.
So you have like JTAC sitting there, and your lawyers, and like rows and rows and rows of everybody, like fires over here, all that stuff. So the AST sit in there as well, and the AST represents their company, or they're like, if you're a CAD guy, you're representing like their squad, or like who's there, your element that's there.
Okay.
So you go to all the meetings, you're doing all the coordinations for them, you make sure their air is good, you're doing all the backside and watching and helping while they're on ops from like the talk perspective of everything. So there was like 3 or 4 like legit badass fucking CAG dudes there. I had Jason there. So if I wasn't out with the boss doing something,
Who was
I
your
was
boss?
just training.
Or what was the boss?
I was taking out like I would work for Colonel Roberson. I'd work for Colonel Fletcher.
What are these guys doing? Are they like villages?
Yeah.
And
So
shaking
we went
hands?
to. So we would go, and I had Thomas and Kilrain too, because they did the flip. Kilrain was at he's a SEAL, and he was at Camp Alpha, and then Thomas was up at FBI. So I did some moving around in all this, you know, but the general concept of the job, like what I was doing was when the boss flies somewhere, I'm with him. I set all that travel arrangements up. I'm basically like, I was like a fucking, like I was like the manager of this like super dysfunctional band that like we also go kill people too, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
So like, and the coolest thing about it was when in my free time, I was just training with Jason and these CAG dudes on the range. Okay. So like, I was a brand new Green Beret, and I just went to the range like 4 days a week and fucking shot thousands of rounds with these dudes who were like,
badass.
it was so fun, so sick. And I learned so much. Okay. So he taught me how to like wear my kit, set up my gun, like every little detail that they did as assaulters and what they learned and all those things. I was with them, right? Yeah. And then when I was working, it was dope as fuck because I saw every single briefing from every level of every special operations in every location in Afghanistan. Yeah. So I would go to a SEAL platoon in Paktika, and then we'd visit all the sites in Paktika. Or we'd go to, you know, I'd go out to like Herat and go see the 5th Group guys. We'd go up to we'd go up north and go see the CAG dudes.
How were you guys traveling? By air, land?
We would fly. We'd fly like card sharks or Gumbies. Those, okay. And then we'd jump on rotary wing to take us in places, or jump in convoys with the guys.
How was that traveling?
Easy. It was awesome. It was fun. Yeah. But because I had that experience of everything, I've also dialed this in from a very tactical perspective, right? Like, just because we're flying from Bagram to Jalalabad, and then we get to J-Bad, we're going to fly up to Asadabad or whatever. Like, I have all those routes planned. Like, what if a helicopter goes down? What happens here? Like, I'm monitoring, like, stopwatch starts, GPSs on, GRGs are going, like, I'm talking on the radio. Like, I was able to really hone a lot of skills, and it was kind of a singleton mission because I'm out with colonels, generals, sergeant majors, and warrant officers, but, like, they carry, like, pistols, and they're just like, yeah, we got Jeremiah, bro. Like, it is what it is.
And you're the only one with them.
I'm the only one with them.
What's some of the crazy shit?
But we link up with the elements that are there.
What's some crazy stuff that went down with these guys?
Most of the stuff they ever did, like we've been at camps where like they got attacked, like we were there, or flying in. You know, it's fucking nuts. Like just getting in there and you know, it's like I'm in there with sergeant majors, colonels, and all this shit, and they're like, you know, seatbelted into the seats, but these are hitters too, you know what I mean? So like my sergeant major would carry his rifle, and so would my warrant, and that was what I really liked about the guys I work for, and even the guys out in Camp Alpha, all the tier 1 guys, sergeant majors and like curating them, like they expected a brief from me, which was dope. Okay. So like when we did, like if we got in trucks and we were rolling out somewhere, it was like all the guys from PSD, they did all their thing. I'm giving the brief. I'm giving them like all their intel, what's going on. Hey, actions on, contact, actions here, rehearsal, boom, boom. They're part of it. These dudes are literally like, sergeant major would walk up with like fucking 31s flipped up, full kit, like ready, like an assaulter, bro. Like with fucking everything.
That's pretty.
And he'd be like, hey, my med kit's here. We do stand in a circle, do radio checks, PCIs, PCCs. The same we did on Team Life. And those officers would do the same thing.
That's cool.
Those senior guys.
Yeah.
So I had a chance to do this like as a singleton, but my experience of doing it before, 10 years earlier, really paid off because I had to be that Green Beret who could fire and forget and not fuck up and not be in trouble and not fucking run around camp banging all the chicks and acting stupid and drinking and fucking blah, blah, blah. But also like no one's checking me. No one's like,
You're
hey, we're flying.
Yourself.
Yeah, we're flying here tomorrow or we're driving here. Like make sure everything's done. And it was like when they figured out it was done was like when I'm standing in a circle with the fucking dude who's in charge of all special operations to Iraq and his sergeant major.
Dang.
And they're standing there. So like I had the cool, like I said, it was a cool experience from the pieces, learning from these very, very seasoned, badass assaulters to going to all these briefings and then having to hone in everything they're teaching me and learning. And I would even bounce ideas off of them and be like, hey, what do you think about this? To being with the boss, to now I'm going to see, we fly out to Shinden and we're getting a briefing from the Marsaw guys out in the middle of nowhere, and they're telling us everything that's going on. So I've seen the picture of the entire Afghanistan.
You're looking at everything from 30,000.
Everything. So that's going to help me be a better Green Beret because I'm learning to operate, like I'm understanding how all three levels of the battlefield, the tactical level, the operational level, strategic level.
99% of guys will never get the experience at.
And I had a Green Beret say something once, a sergeant major, in the jog. And he literally was it was kind of in passing. It was like he was talking to someone else, and I was like, hey, how's it going, Sergeant Major? He's like, hey, how's it going? And they were talking, and they were like, and he was like pointing. He's like, Jeremiah is one of them. And he gave me a compliment. He's like, he's a hell of a Green Beret. And I mean, I'm a brand new guy. Like I've been there like for 3 months. I'm like, oh shit, like that was so cool, for some guy. And I'm not a team guy, but at this point, I'm not some badass Green Beret. I'm just executing Army tasks that I'm supposed to be doing.
Needs of the Army. Yep.
So, but he said a Green Beret, any E7 Green Beret should be able to walk into any S3 in the Army and take over the S3's role, whether that's the S3 Sergeant Major or that Major S3 that runs that S3 battalion. Yeah. And I really took that and was like, I understand that. And I've worked with so many amazing badass dudes who are like the smartest, most as an E7 could literally walk in places and own shit. And that experience, really helped push me forward to what I was going to do. So the deal that they made was I would spend, so my sergeant major told me that I could either do a full year on this gig because they're deployed for a year and then go back to 1st Battalion, or he would allow me to do 6 months. And then when I hit 6 months, he'd find a replacement and I could go to an ODA in 3rd Battalion.
What'd you choose?
To stay in country. So the best thing was I was like, okay, so what you're telling me, Sergeant Major, is, and he was like, I'll give you school a choice if you stay for a year. That was the only thing, but I'd go back to 1st Battalion. So I could have been their guy for a full year doing that job, that PSD stuff for a full year, and then go to SODIC or sniper school, whatever I want to go to, and then go to 1st Battalion. So it'd been a whole year I wasn't a team guy. Yeah. Or I could spend 6 months and then go to, because 3rd Battalion's replacing 1st Battalion in June.
So you pretty much would have rolled right over with these
So guys. What I got to do was in July, I went to an ODA in country.
Okay. So
it was perfect. I was like, so I'm doing 6 months of this and then 6 months of that. Fuck yeah. So I wasn't full of 6. I spent 11 months in Afghanistan that year.
So how was it when you changed it over? A little bit of different change of pace, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a little weird because I think the guys were a little hesitant at first because they're like, "No, this dude was at HQ. I was doing that job." And
these guys were out hooking and jabbing. So
no, they were they had been on a couple ops before I got there, but there were obviously multiple deployments. But I'm the new guy, so they're like, "Oh, of course, the new guys come in to fucking spy on us," type of bullshit. Whatever the fuck they did. I had a good experience because I had some really good squared away dudes on that ODA. I was able to prove myself, over time. And I just did the normal, humble, shut the fuck up, don't say nothing. I'll play your game, bro. Your fucking game's in the hallway and all the new guy shit. Okay, whatever. And I think that's important. I think that, and I'll even kind of say this, what I liked about my career was I had so many of these points where I started completely over and had to prove myself. Yeah. When I was a drill sergeant, I never was I had to start over and prove myself and be a good drill sergeant.
For sure.
When I was, now I'm
have to prove yourself.
Prove this as a Green Beret. Yeah. Now that I retired, getting into, I want to be the best. I want to be like my grandpa. I want to be a fucking cowboy. I'm never going to be a badass cowboy like my grandpa. Yeah. But I have so much fun just being humble. Yes, sir. No, sir. Like I go work at places, go work on a ranch, or go do something. And, I'm like, if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to say, I don't know how to do that. Yeah. Or, hey, sir, or whatever, and someone wants this done this way. Like, yes, sir, I do it. And just to have those stages of life where you always bring yourself back to zero and to humble yourself. And I think that that's important because a lot of people just get on this flow and I am who I am. And they stay there versus, trying new things and doing things out of your comfort zone. But also sometimes there's also ego and jobs and things that you're doing. So, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being the new guy that also brought a lot to the table.
Yeah.
Because and eventually
you're not just the new guy. Like you're qualified. Maybe not as an SF guy what they're looking at, but like your career up to that point, you're not just some E7.
Yeah,
just hey, I'm an SF guy now. Like you.
Yeah, and I had a lot of good responses from my team sergeant and my team and my team leader and stuff. I actually went to the Q course with my team leader.
Oh, cool.
He was in SUT with me. And he was like, yeah, Jeremiah square. Like he was like excited that I was coming. He was like, I know this dude.
How quick were you thrown into those guys before you started just doing missions?
As soon as we got there, I think we started doing. We were running commandos, so I did kind of get to choose where I wanted to go in 3rd Battalion. Meaning, this is what I did. I wasn't gonna pick a team because I thought that was like that's how you really get treated like bullshit because they're like, oh, you fucking picked our team.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just looked with Sergeant Major on the matrix of who needed an 18 Echo. I was like, any team that needs an 18 Echo, can we? And he was like, that was his idea. He was like, well, let's just pick a team that needs an 18 Echo and whatever mission, whatever team it is, just pick that one. So it's like dope. So there was like a couple teams needing 18 Echoes and one team was running commandos. And because
commandos are the Afghan army, is that what you guys were calling them?
Yeah, no, so the commandos would be, so the Afghan army has their regular army.
Yeah.
Commandos would be like their rangers.
Got it.
So they go through a selection process. They're just there's 3 companies of them in a battalion and a Kandak. And they're our partner force. So when we go out on missions, it's literally like 12 gringos in the middle of like 150 fucking Afghans, and you're just like mobbing through a village, just smoking.
Shit.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Well, that's why I wanted that mission because everyone else was doing retrograde because it's 2013. They were closing down all the ops. So 14 was going to be completing retrograde and only doing.
You're still out there. This is one of the few guys.
So I didn't want to I thought it was cool to there's teams out there like shitting in wag bags, eating fucking MREs, but I'm like, those missions were like going, it wasn't what it was back in the day. They weren't like just riding out and hitting shit. They were like, so I knew if
more hearts and minds.
Right. And I knew what the commando mission was. Mm-hmm. So I looked at that as like, if I can get this mission, like I know it's going to be awesome.
Because during that time, if people don't understand, the big push for the commandos was because we wanted their forces real. And so you guys were just babysitters in a way, making sure that these guys
we went out with them. We controlled all the
You're
air.
Literally herding cats. Like you're calling in
just
air
like Ranger School. Just like Ranger School too.
And it's kind of scary too because you don't know who's good, who's bad. These dudes will turn on you in a heartbeat. They don't ever watch when they're shooting any RPGs or anything. They're just blasting shit and everybody behind them.
So the cool thing about the commandos was we lived with them.
Okay.
We had like a little separate walled off like kind of compound.
Okay.
But we just walk right across the street and each guy, not every guy, but 2 guys from the ODA were assigned to each company. So like myself and my buddy had first company. So we trained them. We do we're on the range with them. We're doing everything. And sometimes we need more guys to come help, whatever. But for the most part, day-to-day operations, we're working with.
And how many of you Americans are there?
Just those 2 on a day-to-day.
So there's 2 Americans.
So like me and you would roll out and go train our company, like 100 dudes. We're just in the middle of fucking on their base, fucking doing CQB and fucking working, rappelling and climbing ladders and getting in and out of aircraft and fucking doing all rehearsals.
I'm not knocking the Afghanis or Iraqis, but
yeah, it's scary.
They're the most.
I mean,
I don't even know how I'd compare them. They're just grown children trying. To try to get them to do anything is almost impossible. And there's 2 of you.
And they don't like to plan because they're Muslim. So they say that planning is like seeing the future, and only Allah can see the future. So they
just want to wing it. Yeah, dude. Oh,
so there's a lot. But what was cool was like getting the respect from the commandos, leading them, being like, I wanted them, like, you want them to look up to you and protect you. And we did. We had some phenomenal commandos, man. Some badass dudes.
Some of those dudes are I mean, I didn't work with any commandos, but I got to work with a lot of Iraqi army, and some of those dudes were out of control. Like, out of control. Like, you just look up and the dude's just off going. I mean, did you have to deal a lot with that, or
no?
these
Our guys
away?
go through a selection process.
Okay, they're all vetted.
So we have a lot more going on with the commandos than the regular army. Someone training, ALP, which is the Afghan police, or the Afghan army, like working that, and then we had so the 3 partner forces for the army was basically, for special forces, we did have ALP, which was like, you basically create your own partner force. You're basically recruiting people from the village to teach them security, and then you give them a uniform, and then you take them out on missions.
Okay.
And then you had, the SFANA, so you had the special forces, the ANANS. It's ANASF, which is the Afghan National Army Special Forces. So they're just like ODAs. And what's funny which was really dope, we'd fly in like with the boss, let's say you're doing PSD, and let's say we're like flying to Panjwai to go see 7th Group Team. Okay. And they're co-located with like an ANASF team. When they fucking land, bro, those birds, and you get off, and like there'll be like 3 or 4 dudes, like team sergeant, team leaders, whatever, standing there. You can't tell who's fucking American, who's Afghanistan.
Really?
Dude, like legit. Most of the time you can tell because the Americans will wear a uniform, a nicest one they have. Yeah. Man, I have patches and rank and shit on it, but they'll have a uniform on. And but bro, these fucking ANSF dudes would have on like a LaRue tactical hat, a fucking Sun2 watch, fucking like a fucking hoodie from like your favorite fucking gun, like
really,
like think about like a cool
Glock hoodie
like a tack hunt fish fucking hoodie on with like camo pants and like fucking
really? Where are they getting all this shit from us?
Fucking Americans, dude, all on fucking roids and shit, jacked as fuck. And like you can't tell because you're like, I don't know if it's just like Jack Mexican SF dudes from 7th Group or like are those Afghans?
Or until you hear them talking.
Yeah, and they can't. And someone can't speak English. You're like, they're just like. Their beards just like they're just like SF dudes, just fucking
hilarious.
Awesome. It's
good
like
for them.
Yeah, and you're just.
I wonder what they're doing now. They're probably all converted back or dead,
trying to survive. Man, that's a sad fucking thing. So, those were kind of the partner forces, and the cool thing about the commandos is our missions were we worked off of 3 cycles. We had green, amber, and red cycle, and what those were like when you're in green cycle, that means you're out on operations. Okay. So each company in the Kandak is on. They rotate 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So when you're on red cycle, they're allowed to like go on leave and like go home and see their wife and kids.
And how long are these cycles?
I think they were 30 days.
Okay, so they had time to travel home.
Yeah, so they would go home, take leave, whatever, come back. Amber cycle, we're training. So it's like if me and you had a company and they're an amber cycle, we're always training. But then let's say third company is on green cycle.
Patrolling.
When we get ready to go on operations, the whole ODA goes with them. It's just our day-to-day task to take out first company. And then when we're on the missions, me and you lead like the main efforts and stuff of that company.
What were some... what was it like dealing with these guys outside of the white? I mean, they're pretty squared away, but like when you guys would get into firefights and shit, I mean, they just...
I mean, some of them are just like hitters, man. Yeah. And then the other side of it is like the Americans, we're always like so used to... These guys just burned out, man. They don't redeploy home. So you're doing 6 months in country and you want to get your gun on and fucking get in gunfights. And you're in a gunfight and you look over and this dude's like sitting there with his helmet off smoking a cigarette and he's like... whatever. He's like,
your turn.
Yeah, he's like, you want to go assault, bro. Because they're just like, and all the common funny things, it's like give them all batteries for their freaking, all their lasers and all their shit, and they don't have batteries. Like what? And they're like, oh, it's a fucking using my Walkman. And like, fuck, like just the shit that they do, and like and you're just like, oh fuck, man. So it's constantly like children, right? Or you're setting up security, and then like you got birds inbound. Your fucking exfilling is dangerous as fuck. You got ISR watching fucking dudes maneuver on the backside of the ridge, and you're like pulling security, and you like look up, and they're like all sleeping. You're like, fucking wake the fuck up. You're like me, and you're trying to like, fucker, get your fucking point, like
point your gun
damn
that
it,
way
dude.
and squeeze the trigger.
Oh, just all the time, bro. Just like,
just not even caring.
I mean, then you had some that were like super switched on. Like the first sergeant of my company was fucking boss, dude. Like that dude would maneuver, fucking throw charges on shit, fucking breach buildings, fucking get his guys in. I mean, we had a lot of good, definitely a lot of good.
That's good.
For sure.
We worked with a lot of the Iraqi army
Yeah.
when, during our days. And I mean, bro, you'd be on patrol and you'd look back and there'd be fucking 5 of them in the local grocery store. They'd be coming out with literally walking out on patrol with grocery bags because we couldn't stop them from buying their own food. We would be walking down the street. These dudes would have grocery bags and like their AK slung. And you're just like, we'd all be looking like, what the fuck? And then the guy would come walking out with chickens and shit. And I'm just like, what are we doing? It was wild with those guys. And our best guy that we had, he was Kuwaiti, so we put him in charge because they all hated him. He's the only one we trusted because I felt like we were gonna get shot in the back every day. But how many deployments did you do after you got obviously made SF? Is this your only one?
No, so I did 3 more or three more rotations. But then the following year we did my team, my ODA was the only ODA that went to Iraq.
Okay.
So we had the rest of the company went to Afghanistan in 2015.
What were you doing in Iraq?
Well, that was when ISIS had like taken over. And
so you went back to fight ISIS?
Yeah, I went back to fight ISIS. And that was weird to be there.
What was that like?
Dude, I mean, we'd go in, I'm trying to remember the names of the camps because we first got there. Like I ended up doing more intel ASO side out of the embassy.
Yeah.
And when we first got there, we were at the airfield at BIOP, and all those compound, those old, like where the mansions and shit were with the big lake and stuff, that stuff's just fenced off, and literally like the army just left, and there's like all the fucking all the cables for the computers and desks and chairs, everything's in there. Just like all they do is take the computers and leave. There's cabinets with shit in them. It's just like a ghost town in those places. It's wild.
Kind of eerie.
Yeah. So like Baghdad wasn't under ISIS control. We had a lot of like ISIS stuff going on in the city, obviously, but they never made it that far down south. We kind of kept them at bay up towards like the Beiji oil refinery.
And you guys are fighting these guys on a daily basis, or are you?
Well, we're training. We're in charge of CTS, so the counterterrorism force. So Jason Ridings, the guy I was telling you, my mentor, one of my mentors, B23, all the CRIF, the CIF, whatever they called them back in the day, the crisis response force. They stood up the ICTF, which was the Iraqi counterterrorism force. So those were like assaulters. So all the old school stuff you saw in Iraq from like 2005 to like 2010, I think it kind of ended, or 9, was like all the CRIFs were rotating every 3 months, and they were fucking getting their guts. Sadr City, like those are like a lot of like legendary dudes who were kind of in that environment, especially for like A15 and B23. So we had basically what they did was the MOI, the Ministry of Interior, when ISIS popped off, he just sent those dudes to get fucking slaughtered. And they were just getting wiped out. So when we came in, by the time that what was still left of ICTF was mostly senior guys. So we had like some sergeant majors, some colonels and things like that left over, but we helped them basically stand up a new program for CTS.
Okay.
I was partnered, I ended up fast forwarding in that trip. I ended up getting directly partnered with General Kanani and General Mahdi, which was they're in charge of, General Kanani is in charge of all special operations for Iraq, and General Mahdi was in charge of intelligence and training. So I was tying intelligence and operations into the training side of things and feeding training directly to support intelligence gathering and operations on the ground. And then we started doing kind of by, with, and through and accompanying further as we kind of progressed in that deployment. And that was my favorite deployment.
Yeah. Why is that?
Man, I just did the most Green Beret shit I could do all the time. I mean, it was like the old school stuff.
You thought it would
well,
be.
because in meaning by that, it wasn't, when I say old school, I don't mean like going somewhere, get my gun on, just like everywhere, you know. It was one day I'd be in a suit at the embassy briefing somebody. Yep. The next day, or like in the same day, I'm putting on a fucking regular clothes and I'm fucking jumping in my car and I'm fucking doing SDR, driving around and doing shit. Or I'm going to meetings, going to this meeting, talking to this source, doing blah, 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 doing all these things. So I was doing all of that on top of like, I didn't have a position. So what happened was my team saw a need that we need someone at the embassy to be able to help us with all this stuff. Where's the disconnect going with General Kanadi and General Mahdi and like what's going on? Like we're supposed to be going on these ops, but like we're not fed anything. Like we're trying to figure this out. So my team sergeant was like, what do you think? He's like, I need a dude up there. He's like, he knew my background and everything. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So when I got to the embassy, I didn't even have a fucking place to stay. So I finally get a room. I get all my stuff. And when I left the embassy, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a desk. I didn't have shit. When I left, the funniest thing about this was I had an office with a window on the same floor as the chancellery where Stuart Jones was. And I had so my DCO, the colonel of third group, like the actual like 2IC of third group. So when one's forward, the other one's the group commander basically. His office was next to mine, and I had like 06s and fucking 05s and shit in cubicles outside my office. And the only thing my placard said on the door was Jeremiah Wilber, CTS advisor. I would have like full bird colonels like knock on my door, be like, excuse me, sir, do you got a minute? I'm like, yeah, come on in, close the door, sit down, want some coffee? Some coffee, want some whiskey, bro? Like I was just there like, what the fuck? And
that had to have been a crazy experience.
Dude, I would literally like smoke cigars with like fucking 3-star generals and shit at night in Baghdadis, and then like the next day I would like go out on fucking ops and shit. So that was what was cool.
Yeah,
and
I could see
at
that
the end, I got an award, and they want to present it to me in front of everybody, and they read like your full name and rank, and for this colonel, this old 7th group dude, he's like, and he was a cool guy, and I also had this legendary ranger named Ray Devins. That I found him because he was the only other NCO like at the embassy.
Okay.
So I was like, oh shit, there's another soft dude here. Let's go. And then me and him together started started tying in like the CAD guys that were there, the SEALs that were there, and like, hey, so we just supported each other.
Yeah.
So like, if there's 3 or 4 dudes from C Squadron that were there doing something, we're like, hey, you need help, we'll do it. And they're like, yeah, thanks. Or we pass intel, we meet up, do intel dumps like once a week, and do all these things. Well, Ray Devins was like the only sergeant major that was there, so like everything I would bounce off or like needed advice or like, hey, we need some top cover on this, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, we'll talk to the ambassador, let's go right now, let's walk down there. So he was like, and he was this like legendary fucking RRD, like he was in Grenada. Like he fucking was a Carl Gustav gunner in Grenada, and he's one of the Rangers. Like when you say his name, like all the old dudes know who he is. He's fucking, and he's like this 50-year-old man, fucking stud. Yeah. And he would go out with me on fucking places, on missions and shit.
Dude, you had some crazy.
Super cool, man. Super cool. So that when they read my award at that, it was funny because the colonel was like, and he comes and sits down next to me. He's like, bro, that's the most SF shit I've ever fucking seen in my life. Because I had this. I had a BMW, up armored BMW. I had 2 vans. Like even if I just know you, even if you're just contracting, you're like, hey man, I'm coming to the embassy, or I'll be here. Like, and I'm like, just fly to the embassy, bro. I'm like, well, I don't have a place to stay. I got you. How many guys you got with you? Like, I got 3. I'm like, all right, come on. I'll give you a room for you and all your guys, and we'll fucking throw a pool party for you. And just like, it was like shit like that. And we're like going to all these embassy parties and like to like
let's talk about embassy parties. Since there's not a lot of people that know about embassy parties. So when I was in Afghan at the embassy, I had no idea those motherfuckers rage at embassies. Well, not in the Afghan embassy anymore, but dude, it was wild of how just wasted these. I mean, and
it's like they never drank alcohol before.
Well, and half of them, I feel like were college age women, like the RSOs and like these. I don't want to say ambassadors.
Well, they're the ones that do all the interviews for the immigration.
Okay. We never interacted with them until they would have these parties, and I'm talking like they would fly in DJs, bumping. I mean, like
I flew Paul Wall from the embassy back to BIOP.
Yeah, dude, these people
fucking get on a bird to fly home.
I'm talking.
He came to do a concert at the embassy.
I mean, we would come, dude. We would come through the embassy first thing. There'd be people passed out in bushes and shit. Yeah. Like I was telling you the other night, the out the back gate there was this little hut.
Oh, the stairs you got to fucking.
Bro, you know how many drunk women, these white women, are falling down, and then they're walking out in the back alley outside of the embassy wall, and I would always be like, ma'am, like, we don't have anybody out here, like you're on your own, and they'd be like, I'm good, like trash, middle of the night in Afghan, downtown Kabul, like, dude, crazy parties. Like I had no idea. Like, and you would think like the ambassadors being there and all. I'm talking ragers.
That was
raging parties in embassies.
That just being said, I will say this: that the reason why that deployment was really cool is because we were on Title 22 when we were inside the wire, and Title 10 the minute we left the wire. Which basically just means that like Title 10 is like what, like all like soldiers and Marines and everybody get like for combat. Like you're out on combat, you're on combat operations, you fucking no drinking, no blah blah. Like all those rules apply, rules of the road, all that shit. Title 10. Title 22 is like it's like you can drink, you can do anything to everybody at the embassy. You're like a fucking DOD employee.
You're a civilian.
Yep.
Damn, dude, that's pretty
so that
legit.
was dope.
So I heard that you got in some like a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
Can we talk about those?
Yeah.
Or that?
So I've done a couple of like, and fortunately, the only one that wasn't in training, the one that happened in Afghanistan was the air would auto rotate, and we just had a really, really hard landing.
No shit.
And then he did get an engine to fire. I don't know how far above the ground.
Yeah.
I'm just holding on for dear life.
What's it like? I mean, like,
it's like, so the feeling of, the way I describe it, it's not like jumping, it's not like free, it's not like any of those things, because I feel in control. It's like being in a roller coaster that's like scary as fuck, that like you're on it, right? It's like like eating fucking mushrooms or like too many edibles where you're like, oh, I can't get off this fucking thing, dude. Like we're fucked. So like, like how they're
riding it out.
How like you get to the top of a roller coaster and it has that like free fall and that like everything in your guts just like it's all suspended. That's the feeling, and I remember like the sounds, the smell, the wind, the doors were open on Black Hawk.
And you just smash off the ground, or
the one we did in Afghanistan, I was actually with my group commander, had a full crew of people, and the other bird, from my understanding, was able to, because they're flying too. From my understanding, as we talked about everything that happened like later on, the other pilots were like basically talking and coaching the pilot like all the way to the ground.
Really?
Which was like, and in that effort, they're like, that was awesome. Like, cause you're going through your checks, and I'm sure, pilot, co-pilot doing these things, but the flight lead was actually like, that wasn't his burden. I guess he was, assisting. I don't know how, but maybe just, hey, don't die, bud. Good job. I don't know. But what happened was, and I don't know the malfunction or everything that happened. I just know that like I'm on comms with them, and they said like, and they were talking, they're going through stuff. The crew chief was running around and they're messing with things, and something happened, mechanical failure. And what we got ready to do is we were getting ready to sit down, and we actually returned back to the site we were visiting. So the little compound that the SEALs were on, that we were there. We turned around and we get back. We crossed the HESCO baskets. I remember looking down and seeing the coming over the HESCO baskets in the wire. Yeah. And then
pretty low.
No. So I remember he was trying to keep altitude. I forget what they were doing, but like I turned the channel because I could hear them talking, and I was like, fuck this. So I turned the channel so I didn't hear everything, and then they were going through malfunctions, and they had turned around to get back to the base. And basically, as we were coming in, they lost an engine. They tried to do some stuff. From my understanding of what it is, and I know this because a little bit of my dad, pilot stuff and flying, but they did have to do an auto rotation. He did get an engine to fire. It was really low, so we had that weightlessness falling. I remember the like kind of coming off to the side a little bit, and then get it to come back. And when it came back on, it was literally just like it like ripped us, and we slammed to the ground. It was a pretty hard landing. One of the pilots was like kind of, I think she hit her face or hit something in her helmet, but she was like had some blood like on her face. Yeah. I think it was just maybe she bit her, I don't know what happened when she hit something. Yep. And then no one else was hurt. Everyone was just like, fuck. Yeah. So, and then the aircraft, from my understanding, wasn't that bad. Okay. It wasn't that bad. That one, they technically classify that as like, and the reason why they say that, like when
when they're like, oh, is a helicopter crash or
Hard
a
landing.
hard landing, was that does go into your records for like with your Delta. So that was a good thing about being Special Forces. All your medical issues, you just tell your 18 Delta and he puts it into MedPros and does everything. So you come back for SRP, everything that's in there. So when you're like getting ready to retire, even if it's not in there, we can like tell the story like we're telling now. And my Delta's like, hey, didn't you get in like something? You're like, oh yeah, I was in Heartland. He's like, all right, let's put that down. Cause then it gives you the chance of like, hey, maybe you don't have any issues now, but like maybe when you're 50, you have like nightmares about just being in a helicopter crash all the time or whatever. Right. So it's like, okay, well, and it's kind of that way. And then we have the sworn statements and the other stuff that we, you know, you have to obviously do, and all that stuff gets filed wherever. But that was the second hard landing I had, and I actually was in a helicopter a full crash in 2000. 2001 on SRT. Our job was all the deploying buses that were going, that everybody that was deployed to Afghanistan, we flew over their buses and escorted them.
Okay.
So they would be at like so Force Pro is just nuts because they didn't know what was going on. So like imagine you're at you're at your staging area and you've got, you know, 5 buses of whatever, this battalion, this brigade, you know, however many are going down to the flight line. We just flew over them.
Okay.
And then when we weren't flying over them, we would do, the pilots would obviously have that flight time. So they would do training stuff like, hey, let's go there. So we do Nap of the Earth and shit like that. And we were legit just fucking around after fucking escorting these dudes. And same fucking thing. I think they called it if I'm not mistaken, like the Jesus nut or whatever. I guess it was like one fucking nut that holds everything together.
Okay.
Well, that fucking sheared. So they lost the tail. So that thing is from my understanding, it's sheared off, but it didn't come off. It's in, the pin's in, it's kind of, but it's going like this. It's just so it's not able to keep anything stable. So the first time, I guess, if he hit it, he would just like spin that thing and it would spin. And then he was like, dude, it was a fucking nightmare. It was bad. Like I thought I was going to die.
No shit.
And then,
how hard do you hit the ground?
I don't know. It is a long time ago. And it was also like, I don't know how to explain that feeling of like you're not in control of anything.
For sure.
So you're just in this contraption and you're just.
Are you strapped in or are you just sitting?
We were actually sitting. So I would sit in the door. They had seats in, but instead of putting like both seatbelts on, I would just put the one on really wide. So I could fucking lean out the door. And what happened was, when that happened, I fucking hit the end of that seatbelt and was like, oh, fuck. And then like trying to like get myself to sit back in. And then I remember like sitting back in. I remember like looking at my buddies in the fucking seats and shit, dude. And it was literally just sitting there and just like, and I just like, I probably just closed my eyes and prayed or something, dude. I remember that. And that's why I have that feeling of weightlessness. Sometimes I hit it and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And it kind of like
brings back some feelers.
yeah. And so I can't, when I say that I don't know everything on that crash.
Yeah.
The other one in Afghanistan was a lot slower.
Okay.
It felt like more slow motion. Like I was like, and the pilot felt like he felt, and I heard him. I was like, okay. And it wasn't like anything calm me. It was just like, it was just way different. This one was like, I didn't hear him on the radio. I don't know, but and when it was over, when they landed, another thing was, it was like a hard landing, but the tail hit and folded like that. So when it hit, it broke that tail.
Really?
Yeah, because he hit it like that, and the tail
snapped off.
Like hit that way, snapped off, and then because that tail hit, we sat this way, and then those rotor blades fucking started hitting the ground, and that was what was
that like?
I was sitting a little sideways, and it like just smashing.
How loud was that?
It's super loud. Well, they hit the ground. They hit the trees. I'm trying to give you like what Texas is like. It's got that like kind of. I don't know if it's like juniper or whatever, like the hill country of like Texas. So we were in like a pasture basically.
Really?
And fucking, and then I remember being there, jumped out,
stuff was smoking a little bit. The crew chief jumped out, got a fire extinguisher, hit some things. It wasn't like when it was over, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
It was just like everybody good, like everybody kind of climbs out, and then the fire trucks and everything like showed up and yeah, silly.
Dude, that is insane.
And like I said, I just remember like seeing, like looking at the helicopter, like looking at it,
Like, oh.
and then that wasn't technically a crash either.
Yeah. So you had a few hard landings.
Mhm.
I want to shift gears and kind of talk about what you're doing now with your organization.
Heck yeah.
So let's jump into that, because you're doing some pretty incredible things.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Okay, War Party.
yep, War Party movement. And
The War Party movement is, I'm going to let you explain
Yes.
everything. So what is it?
So I retired from the Army.
Yep.
January 2020 is my last day in the Army.
Damn, so you're kind of fresh out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking at gigs that most guys in my profession can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I hop on one, and my buddy's on, and it's anti-human trafficking in Uganda. So,
Fuck. Okay.
That-
Hold on a second. Hold on. Time. Matt, we're about to jump into a whole other section. What time are we at right now?
We're 3:40.
Fuck. We got to get into this. All right. Dude, I want to get into human trafficking. I want to get into
Sorry I
War
talked
Party.
so long, dude.
No, bro. This is incredible stuff. So, human trafficking.
Yes.
Is your first gig out of the military.
right. So,
Was this children or just human?
my buddy that I was on an ODA with when I first got to third group,
Okay.
phenomenal dude, Seth Goggins. He was working on this gig, and basically what it was, it's a bunch of former operators from all over the world.
Okay.
And it's ran by the lead on that one at that time was a JTF-2 commando from Canada, and as well as a Commando 2 from Australia.
Okay.
And they use but your target is mostly child mutilation, witch doctors, and human sacrifice.
Child mutilation.
Right, because they don't have the education, so they look at it through religion. So like if your kid, let's say your kid's like has ADHD, or he's just like being a kid,
Yeah.
he's just running around being crazy. We're like, well, he's got something in him, so we need to do X, Y, Z to him. So like chop off an arm or something, or like the amount of times like the Marines have like say, hey, can you guys like come out here to our spot, and there'll be like a dude sitting outside their front gate like playing with a kid's head, and shit like that.
Fuck me. Man.
So like all of that.
And you're dealing with this stuff?
Yes. So you're doing, and there's not too much I can get into detail about this one. You are trained assistant advising.
What does that mean?
Trained assistant advise means you are training the local police force. You're
On how to
assisting,
handle
you're
this.
advising them on the operations, and you're assisting them.
So you're not allowed to like intervene or anything?
Yes and no.
Can you
So
smoke,
you're
smoke,
accompanied.
smoke these dudes or no?
Yeah, you're accompanying them.
Okay.
So you have you know.
You're
but it's-
armed.
Right, but it's also not it's not a OGA or a three-letter agency that
Yeah.
It's,
You don't
this-
have backup.
No, this is
Privately funded.
all alone, unafraid. Yeah, you get a rusty AK and a fucking pocket knife. Yeah.
What the fuck?
So COVID,
And you're where during this time?
Uganda.
Uganda, which, I mean,
Yeah.
there's some shit that goes down there.
So, and then this also ties into like there's anti-poaching, anti-human trafficking. Like there's this plethora of things that are going on here. So with that being said, I'm all set to like, hey, I do this like in doc with my buddy. I'm like, cool, come back, and then we did. We're getting ready. We're getting spun up to do some stuff in Haiti. Blah, blah, blah. And then like COVID's like, no, you guys
Shut everything
down.
yeah.
So now I'm sitting at home and I'm like, well, all these missions that we prepped for and all this planning, everything that we did, it was like, it's so rewarding in all this. But at the same time, it's like, well, how do I help like Americans? I want to help American kids. Going back to my parents, my mother was huge in the Native community. She always was like helping women get out of abusive situations. Or like, we'd take them to like a church or someplace they could go.
As a kid, you were
As a
watching
kid, I
your
was with
mom
my
do
mom.
this.
Yeah, my mom and my dad. My mom, I remember one time, the very first like memory I can think of my mom doing something like this. I was probably 3 or 4, and she loaded me up in the car, and we had a little Honda Civic, and she drove down these trailers, and she had a baseball bat. She played softball, and she grabbed a red softball bat. She went out there, and I remember her fucking banging on that trailer door, and then she went inside, and I heard some banging around and some yelling and shit, and then my mom came out with this Indian girl with a baby.
Really?
She got in the car, and then my mom took her to the church.
Really?
Yeah, I took her, and then took her to a church in Havre, and then I remember, there's times where like there was a foster family that was like watching these kids, like they were foster kids and they were all Indians, and my parents like testified at their trial because they're the ones who actually called them out for like abusing these kids.
Really?
And called the police and that stuff. So I had my parents were very like right is right, especially with kids and women.
So you grew up watching a lot of this.
Yeah, and so my mother was always talking about MMIW, which stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. So I want to mess up the numbers, but in 2016 there were 2,000, I think it's 2,917 or 2,700. Fuck, it's a lot. I should pull it up, but it's
over 2,000.
Over 2,000 women, Native women and girls, went missing in 2016, and only 116 of those cases were logged in DOJ.
Why? How?
Exactly. So what happens with MMIW? So the red handprint over the face, that's literally over the mouth. That is like the symbol for missing and murdered Indigenous women. My mother.
Why? What? I mean, I get.
So it just kind of represents like the silencing, like the blood and like your sound. They can't speak. Like there's like a physical hand over their face, right? And they're silenced.
I mean, it's a pretty powerful.
Yeah.
They're powerful photos. That's how I even came across you in the first place.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean they are, and like I have like one of my daughter like on my Instagram and stuff.
Damn.
And so my mother, because of the work she did in there, I was just looking for a way to like honor my parents.
Okay.
My mom passed away in 2019.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean she's a badass lady, but she was struggling. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and basically like all the meds she took. Like it's why I don't take meds now.
Yeah.
Like anybody listen to this podcast, like fuck that. Like call me. Like I'll show you shit you can use from the earth. But destroyed her immune system. She goes downhill and all that stuff. So it was one of those things where I was like, I want to honor my parents. I want to honor my mother. So I got back in the Native community, and what I did is I just started like, I literally was just like, well, how do I help people? And I was raising money for the same organization that was in Uganda that Seth and everyone was tied into. And my goal was, I was like, well, I can start a t-shirt company, and until I can figure out what to do in the Native community, all the money that I raise, I'll just help the community. So I looked at it as more of like, hey, if I can buy $500 worth of school supplies and take them to Navajo, like, then that's what we do. Or if maybe that's what we're doing. Or maybe it's send $1,000 check to the organization, that's in Uganda or whatever. So that was my plan, to be able to start search and rescue efforts and just improve the community along the lines of human trafficking and missing women, with the emphasis on the Native community, and basically just have the t-shirt sales fund that.
Yeah.
So what it really turned into was like, hey, I can use my skill sets as a Green Beret to be able to assist families. So, I fast forward a few months, and now I'm like on Indian reservations, like literally conducting search and rescue efforts.
On your own?
On my own.
So are you getting calls from?
Yeah, I tied into a couple of like grassroots efforts.
So you're not even working with law enforcement. No. So you're just grassroots, word of mouth. Like
yeah. A lot of it's grassroots. Or I see like a missing flyer, and I'll be like, hey, well, what's going on with this lady, or who knows? And if it was somewhere close, I try to intervene and try to like, hey, how can I help?
So you're just doing the investigation work. You're knocking doors, trying to find these missing women and children, all on your own.
Yeah.
And funding it off of t-shirts.
Yeah.
Bro. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So I had, thank you. I mean, it means a lot, because it's like, it's one of those things with the Native community where it's the forgotten. And
100%, man.
And it's like, if we can take care of, I look at like MMIW movement being a little bit bigger because a lot of people don't understand is where there's poverty, there's human trafficking. So this happens red, white, black, brown, doesn't matter. The Rust Belt, the border, everywhere there's poverty, right? Like these little girls and these little boys and these kids they're the ones who get the worst of it all.
So can I ask you a question? Then it's gonna sound horrible, but I mean it by the best. But like, why don't we give a fuck about these women and children on the reses anymore? Like, why is it? I feel, and I could be completely wrong, but just from the last few years of really like watching and seeing what's going on, I feel that the women and children on reservations are targeted.
Yes.
Because once they're gone, they're gone. Once they're off the why do we not care about the women and children on the res?
Okay, so I'll give you.
I mean, they're the most respectful.
No. And I'm going to break this down like from like a tactical perspective on like operationally, like how do you target, how do you assist what's going on? So, yes, add all the factors that we know, law enforcement being overrun, not what it is, blah, 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 like understaffed everywhere.
Every excuse.
So let's take, like Houston, Texas, for instance. The ghetto, downtown Houston, Texas, primarily black, okay? Well, there's around Texas in that area, there are still jobs, there are still things going on. Is there organized crime? Yes. But there's way less freedom of maneuver to be able to do things. And you can look at this from like the Marine infantry's perspective of like when you were in downtown, like Ramadi, like your freedom of maneuver is restricted. You're restricted to like what's going on and things. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, like you can fucking grab someone and they're fucking gone.
So who's doing? Besides, obviously, the women, it's coming down to their domestic partner. Who's snatching and grabbing children?
This is I'm going in that direction. Right?
Okay.
So most of the things that happen with like in the hood, let's say like in the ghetto, that instance where that inner city in Houston. Those perpetrators and those offenders are usually like house. They know them. It's their uncle. It's the boyfriend, it's the mom's boyfriend that comes in every night and has sex with her when she's, since she's been 8 years old, those kind of things. And that happens everywhere. Rich, poor, mostly happens where the addiction and poverty and drugs and alcoholism are in those families. Those young ladies don't get trafficked and moved as much in the same manner.
Okay.
Because it's like, if you kill someone in the ghetto, it's usually like where are you going to bury the body? What are you going to do with them? Like there's a shootout and gang violence. Like, well, there's dead dudes in the street now. Yeah. Well, think about like you live in the middle of nowhere.
You got like 2 cops on the whole res.
Yeah. So exactly. So there's more access and placement for bad actors to be able to do more without being seen. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's all I'm just trying to give you is that perspective of like, there's more eyes on people in the city and it's harder. Like, where are you going to put this body at? What are we going to do? Like, if you think of it like at a criminal standpoint, to be able to grab them, right? So I'm not saying that it does happen. It does. Okay. The majority of the way people, and then even when you take the middle class or upper middle class, or to include rich people, a lot of time what parents listen, what happens is did you know that you can message on Pinterest? Okay, so let's say, and I'm in the same boat. My oldest daughter's 24 now, but teenagers, right? Got a phone, this thing, you're telling them, hey, no Snapchat, no social media, no these things. I want it to be private. You're monitoring it. So there's no 30-year-old guy, 40-year-old guy trying to groom her on social media, right? The problem is how many times have you looked at it and what you think is a fucking 16-year-old guy is really a fucking 40-year-old dude 100%. Coaching your fucking your daughter along because you're not paying attention. So let's say you do remove all those apps and everything, and she's finding ways to continue to talk to him and to continue to be groomed by him. And next thing you know, she just leaves thinking she's going to go because you have rules at your house and my parents are so mean and blah, 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 blah. And they won't let me be a fucking non-binary toaster and they want to do this. So now I'm going to leave. And they think they're meeting, the 17-year-old kid that they love. And the reality is like I pull up and like they're fucking ghosts. They're gone now. So that happens a lot too. And that's all over the country.
There's a lot of grooming that goes
There's grooming, like, so you take online. Now when you talk, I'm setting some of these scenarios up so you understand. Now when you add the Indian reservation to it, if you add, the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, you're adding these just wide open spaces.
Yeah.
And there is nothing. It's lots of drugs, lots of alcoholism, no jobs, no money. And the access to be able to do something is easy. A lot of the bad actors, there is a lot of cartel activity and gang related cartel activity. And a lot of the cartel and like a lot of these guys that you see, like these bigwigs or whatever, you wouldn't know. They live in like a gated community in fucking Gallatin Highway by Bozeman. Like they're outstanding citizens. Their kids get straight A's. So like,
and they got a whole in their,
and they got a fucking whole operation, bro.
And they're just
they got a
snatching
whole
and grabbing
operation.
kids,
and they might even use Indians to do it, or they're recruiting people, or they're doing things. And it's not always like this. No one's really cracked the code. I've talked with a lot of like people who think that. I work with this detective from Native Search Solutions, and he uses facial recognition system to be able to. So what I do with him, and let's say somebody goes missing, I send him all the data on it, and what he does, the facial recognition software pings them all over the country, because most people don't know this either. Just because you're a cop, so let's say a girl goes missing in Boise, Idaho, right? White girl, whatever, she's gone. Well, let's say she gets arrested for shoplifting in Tallahassee, Florida. Do you think, Americans, we watch too much TV. We think when she gets arrested, she's going to come up in the system that she's missing 17-year-old girl from fucking Boise, Idaho.
No.
She won't.
Because it's only pretty much within state lines, right?
So
agencies really don't communicate.
So all your systems, and so what happens is that facial recognition system that we have, that he uses, it scrubs everything. So when she gets picked up for stealing bras at Target, she pops. Now we know where she is. Hey, she's in Tallahassee. She's sitting in lockup right now, or they just released her on bond.
Is this a civilian-owned program, or
civilian?
Because the law enforcement's obviously clearly not using this, like you just said.
Right.
So as a civilian, you guys have better technology to be able to use facial recognition to find missing women and
this
children.
is a nonprofit that he runs. He's a retired detective.
Why aren't we using this across the country? Like, why isn't this implemented?
Yeah, I don't know. So
why does our government not care about these things? Like, why is this not? I get it's an ugly topic and nobody wants to touch it, but like, why?
So, and I'll add. I'm almost to the government part.
Okay.
No, you're good. You're
Sorry,
good.
I just have so many questions.
I know.
Because it's such a.
Well, I'm trying to like paint the whole picture and like tell the story so I can answer as many questions as possible.
For sure.
So what happens is when you're a missing lady on Navajo, and it could be a bad actor. So up until a lot of people give her shit, but Ivanka Trump did a lot for the Native community. She instituted Savannah's Law. She also started working. Yes, Biden signed it, and everyone gives Biden credit, but he didn't do it. So before 2021, a non-Native could not be prosecuted for crimes they committed against Natives on Indian land. So then Savannah's Law, Savannah was a young lady. She was pregnant up on South Dakota, and her upstairs neighbors, kidnapped her, cut her baby out of her, killed her, rolled her up on a carpet. They kept the baby and they dumped her in the river. So the law is
they couldn't be prosecuted technically.
No, they could. They were off the res. They got murdered. But what that law does is allows law enforcement agencies to interact and communicate with each other. So before that, what happens is let's take and this happened to me on Crowheart Indian Reservation at Fort Washakie. So we got a lady who's missing. I'm trying to help a family find their aunt. And what happens is Fort Washakie PD, the tribal police, they probably have 3 cars that they all hot seat. They are covering a county. Basically, if you think of it like a county, the reservation, I mean, it takes 2 hours to drive from one end to the other end. So like you think of your small town cop, right? Your small town cop, what they deal with. Now you add the bureaucracy and the politics of the government, of the BIA, of the res police. So it's small town shit, right? So let's say here's an example to people. I'm a deputy. Everyone in town knows me, and they know I beat the snot out of my wife. Probably do, because they all. It's a pretty maybe not for sure, but it's for sure. Now, when you get an argument with your wife and you slap your wife around and she calls the police and I show up, I'm your fucking cousin, or I'm just like, like
Everything's
yeah,
swept under the rug.
Yeah, somebody like fucking like Jeremiah showing up, like he beats his fucking wife. What the fuck's he gonna do for me? So you add that in there. You add in like that's small town stuff, right? That happens in fucking middle of nowhere, Kansas. Like the lady's like, I'm not gonna fucking call the deputies.
sure.
Like, what are they gonna do? Fucking Jeremiah beats the fuck out of his wife. He's gonna show
Have
up.
coffee every Sunday morning.
Yeah, like what the fuck? So you have that, and then you have just the lack of resources. So Savannah's Law came in to institute where basically like state police, so the state, the sheriff's department, the counties, everything that's tied in can assist the resident to assist, and actually they can even cross. So they can if they have a letter of agreement or something, like the deputies can come in and assist them with their searches or their investigation.
So you see on TV shows, and I hate referring to like Yellowstone and shit because I know it's just Hollywood, but there's this rift between res police and state police. Is that a real like? Is that like across the board, or is there certain reses that are like absolutely not, we got it, and then there's other ones that have open arms, or is it mostly across the board? We want to police our own people because
the trust in the Native community. So here's my example. I'm half breed. I don't look super. I don't look Indian. People that know me are good. If they don't know me, like they're like, who the fuck's this white dude? Or who's this Mexican? The trust issues of what happened. So you got to remember, we talked about the boarding schools in the beginning of this. It's like, every family is still affected by boarding schools.
For sure.
Every family is still affected by everything that goes on. And people think Indians are Indians. It's like, no, dude, like a Sioux, like if you're Oglala, you're not the same as the Crow. You don't even know we're like enemies. Like we don't like Grovans and the Assiniboine live on the same resin place, and they're like the Bloods and the Crips. Like there's so many other factors and culture that goes into this. And the way the government and people look at this is like, oh, it's Indian, it's red, it's one. It's like, well, it's fucking not. It's way different.
We had two guys on our platoon. One, I want to believe it's Apache, and I don't know what his rival tribe was. They fucking
was it Navajo? It's probably Navajo.
It was
Navajo
100% Navajo.
Yeah.
And these dudes,
Navajo people think they're like, what's funny with them, because they're a lot of them are very educated and they have the biggest reservation, and a lot of them when you see them on social media or in person, they and I'm not saying this so they have that reputation in the Native community being like they're better than everyone. But it's funny because it's like, bitch, we kicked your ass. Like you haven't had a warrior since Narbona in fucking 1812.
Well, the
like
problem was
up.
like the running joke in the platoon was these guys would get drinking, and we'd be like, and so somebody would come to me and be like, hey Sarge, like they got into the fire water again, and we're like, and it was, I mean, dude, it was guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. It was almost like having like the only closest thing I can culturally show that would be like literally having
Bloods and Crips together in a platoon,
dude, or like two Mexican dudes from like completely and
that's how it was. And it was, and here I am from upstate New York. I mean, we have a bunch of residents. We play them in hockey and all that shit. But dude, it was like they legit hated each other, and it was like the running joke with all of us in the platoon, like, oh hey, let's get them all liquored up and just sit back and watch the show, because these dudes, I mean, they would put their differences aside during the day, but man, as soon as they
it's a little more old school. A lot of times it's because I have great relationships with a lot of Indians from all over the place, but it is still, I mean,
so there's a lot of culture that runs deep that'll never change.
I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it's like
it needs to go back.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
because you guys still have like ceremony, like not I don't want to say war parties, competitions in a way where all these tribes come together and compete and things like that.
No, so we have like gathering nations and that's what a lot of it's like dancing and showmanship,
show their pride and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get off topic of these kids, so we'll get the whole tangent of that.
So with all those problems I'm trying to outline about the small town vibe, the no money, there's no funding, there's a lot of corruption.
You're set up to fail from the start.
Set up to fail. And then on top of that, everyone knows how awesome the government works if it was a business. So every single layer of bureaucracy, whether it's the BIA, whether it's tribal police, whether everything's federally funded, so there are people on reservations that are like have money, but if you're not in one of those families, like you don't have shit.
If you're not part of the casino higher ups.
And even the casino, like, yeah. So like, and a lot of people think like, oh, there's all this casino money. And it's like, well, there's not. You're not really getting government funds or like there's government subsidies, there's commodities, there's kind of like welfare, if you will. But the reality is like, what else do you want them to do? So
what else can they do?
right, and that's why I tell people, I'm like, well, where I grew up in Montana, it's like all the Indians I know, they're like linemen or they're cowboys,
Military.
they're like joining the military. They literally like leave the res to go do something, or they might cowboy on the res or around it, and it's literally just blue collar work that they were able to pick up. I have a really good buddy who's he was in infantry kid in 4th ID for a while, and now he runs it's not a hotshot crew, but I think it's similar. They call it a little something different, but he runs the BIA Fire out of Rapid. So they're in the Pine Ridge. So they're on Pine Ridge, and they're basically the BIA Fire, and the BIA Fire actually does a lot for just even non-native. So they were down in Texas.
But I mean, how many of those guys are getting an opportunity? A dozen or two?
Correct.
Mean,
no, it's not a lot.
I know it's helping a couple, but it's not helping the community.
Right. And that's the problem. There's no big, robust job program or anything for them. So when you talk about missing and all these problems that go into that, the other side is in Billings, Montana, the mayor of Billings in the middle of the night was having the sheriff deputies round up any missing people in Billings, bums, basically, migrant, what do they call them? But bums, homeless people, and he'd give them a one-way ticket on the fucking bus to fucking Seattle. So how many Crow people from Hardin that were in Billings got fucking snatched up because he's just drinking or he's an addict, and they need help. They don't need to be shipped off somewhere. So those type of things happen. And getting back to Mark Pooley with Native Search Solutions, his theory is that Native women are sought worldwide, where the Native women are like the only women that exist in the world that like it's just iconic, like an Indian. It's iconic. So it's like getting like a samurai. Like, where do you find a samurai? Like, where do you like certain classes of people?
So the rest of the world look at our Native women.
Correct. So he thinks that a lot of these women that are gone. They're overseas gone.
Really? Are they finding them?
I don't know of anybody who's found anything overseas or like proved his theory. The thing is that we've tracked and monitored a bunch of like movements of certain cases, and they dead end places, whether they were killed or just no one's talking. They're buried somewhere in the middle of nowhere or whatever. But there's a lot of like just dead ends on things. And Mark's theory is that there've got to be, because when you look at certain corridors, like I-40, I mean, it's so bad between Albuquerque and Farmington, New Mexico, that like the highway patrol don't even pull people over. It's like human trafficking, like capital, like it's fucking throw a rock at anything driving by. There's probably somebody in it needs to be rescued. That's like how they feel about that.
So why aren't they?
Well, the same thing. We're at why don't we give fucking first Cav all of Texas, give 82nd fucking California and 101st fucking Arizona, and 4th ID New Mexico, and we'd fucking lock the border down. We don't, because we all have hidden agendas. And the problem is people, regardless of your ideation, your political ideations and what you think, people who've never been to war, never seen the strifes and the turmoil of what fucking war and real horrible conditions are, have no idea. And the people who suffer the most from all of it are fucking kids. Kids fucking suffer. So if we really wanted to institute change and create something that was way different, we fucking could. We just choose not to. Just like, how do they choose not to show you where all their money went? Like, they're missing billions of dollars. Like, we just spent somewhere. We don't know where it is. Well, who spent the money? Where is it? What happened to it? So because the government isn't run efficiently, it's so easy to institute layers of bureaucracy. Because here's the problem. If we hire 5 people for this job, and we put this guy in charge who used to be a general over here, and now he came from Raytheon, and now we're going to make him the solution, and he's going to solve the problem of the border. If he solves a problem, guess what he's going to do? He's going to work himself out of a fucking job. So we always create, whether it's homelessness, in a given city, it's like, do you think Albuquerque or LA will ever fix homelessness? No, because that person who's in charge of fixing it is going to lose their job if they fucking do. So they'd rather just and it's just circle
Cycle,
of
yeah.
there's zero accountability at all in anything.
Where do you come into play with all this?
So basically what happened is I looked at this from, I was on a deal, and I actually got into a little bit with an operation that a 3-letter agency was running, and I kind of stepped on their toes. They didn't like it.
So you're doing the same thing that they were like.
I helped a girl that was missing.
Okay.
Family was in contact with her. They talked to her. They knew what she was doing. She was working. She was with a pimp. She was working at a hotel.
So how many prostitutes are trafficked? Like, is there a big percentage?
Majority of. So everyone thinks that like, oh, it's the oldest thing in the world. It's the oldest professional world. That stuff. No, man. Like, these women don't
want to be there.
Want to do that. They're groomed into that. They're like
forced drugs,
forced, manipulated. Again, the 13-year-old girl that spent 2 years talking online to this guy, and now she's 15. She goes missing. By the time you find her and she's 17 or 18, she's gone, dude. She loves him. She's there. She's doing her thing, like, or she's drugged out.
Because they get a lot of Stockholm syndrome, right?
It's not necessarily Stockholm syndrome. It's
groomed into it.
There are just so many. The mind is so
fragile.
So fragile, man. When they're that young, until you're in your mid-20s, you're super impressionable and fragile, and there's a lot of that gamesmanship and that what these guys do, and these guys are pros, man. The guys that do that. I mean, think about it this way: as an adult male, being your age, 40 years old, if you talk to like a 21-year-old girl at the bar, like, yeah, you're just like, what?
Oh my God.
And like, if you were like a dating prospect, or you were like, I'm single, and you're just out at the bar, and you're like this old dude, you could like just like, what? It's
with any life experience.
Most women don't get that either. They're like, what? Like, so the 21-year-old girl who would be like, no, there's no way me, and it's like, you kidding me? Like, and so. All those things factor into just human trafficking in general and that prostitution. And I always try to tell people, like, it's not what you think. These ladies are not like, I choose to do this and I'm giving my money to this guy and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not. Even the porn industry is very inundated with
100%.
So I was on Billings. I was assisting a lady to help get her. I was actually talking with the sister, and through another organization called Look For Me, and they were helping me facilitate all this. The only thing I was gonna do was go there. I got an Uber to the place so I could get her in the Uber with me, pay for her time, so the whatever looked like a customer, and then take her to where her sister was at the hotel. And all her sister wanted to do was talk to her and be like, hey, because I can't take her.
Because then it's kidnapping too.
So brought her to the Uber over there, and then sister talked to her, whatever, and she was able to actually like, yeah, I want to go. So her and her sister got on the bus, and they got on a bus, and we sent them to a place down south. We sent them to Texas. And what happened there was they were doing an investigation on what was going on in that area, and I
fucked everything up.
Supposedly.
But you saved a woman. Like, you pulled her out of that system. Like, well, how was that a bad thing?
Yeah. So,
I mean, I get it. They probably had all the intel and were gathering information. I get their side, but like, why would another day? Like, why would you not?
And I have like and I started getting. This is actually how I got tied in with like U.S. Marshals and like other kind of agencies, because I was like asking questions, and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm literally like, hey man, I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to. Yeah. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I basically was told, like, and they gave me resources. I did talk with like IHS, and they gave me some things to like, here's what you do, and then I talked to an FBI. I didn't talk to any agents where I was there, but I did get a hold of a lady on a case we were working with in Arizona, and the FBI agent who's in charge of everything Arizona that has to do with missing natives. It's one lady, and she's got fucking
plates
thousands of fucking cases. Yeah. So it's like well, like Again,
do?
there's no
What do you do?
there's no resources.
Yeah.
There's no like what it.
And so that's kind of what motivated you to get.
Yeah,
the
so
War Party
so
going.
so with what I was doing with War Party movement, again, I use that T-shirt money.
Yeah.
I leaned on the veteran community heavily, and what I would do is like, even if it was just social media. Let's say someone's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Like, what did you do?" I kind of get a little bit. Say for you, you're like, "Hey, man, like, what can I do to help?"
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool. Jump on the phone, and just kind of like talk you through what's going on. Like, hey. And I'll just say, hey, man, if that's something you want to help, then, you know, you live in Boise. Like, if anything kind of comes around here, you're like, yeah, man, give me a call. So let's say I'm like, hey, man, I got a call. And this doesn't have to be native. Like, because I've done this. The first rescue, technically, I ever did was with a girl named Kay Smythe. And she's from Wales. She had organized crime ties on a guy she was dating down in L.A. Kind of locked her in her apartment. Couldn't let her leave. They were paying bums and stuff to try to sexually assault her and do things and beat her up when she'd leave and go get groceries, whatever. So I just drove down to L.A., loaded all her shit up in my car, and drove her to North Carolina.
No shit.
So, and the reason why I was putting that out there, because War Party movement is not, the reason why I'm really big, and I'll break the symbol down, but it's not just about Native women.
Okay.
So what I would do is like, I have that conversation with you. Cool. Like, hey, I'm like, yeah, I got this dude named Bam. Like, he's dope. He said he'll help me out there. Cool. And I'll kind of like put it in my phone notes, or I have a little map, and like I got stuff on a little app. So let's say like down in like Idaho Falls or like Buell, someone's like, hey man, I know this lady, she's in an abusive relationship. She just needs to like, she's just trying to leave, but her husband's at work, whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll give you a call, and you're like, dude, I got you. Like, me and my buddy will drive down there. Our husband's at work. We'll get all our shit. If he comes home, we'll fuck him. Was he going to fight us? We'll call the cops. Like, so just, you know, and it's just like, now this lady is just packing her things up, and you just like follow her to the highway, and she's going to Salt Lake, or she comes up here or whatever.
Really?
And it's just simple as that.
Really?
And maybe it's even like,
And that's all they need. Sometimes that's all
people need. They just need a little, like, some encouragement, some help, some direction.
A little reassurance that their man's not going to come home and snatch their ass
So
up.
we've done things like that all the way to, you know, like physical searches. Like, I'll see like a Facebook group or someone in the Native community saying, hey, we're going to do a search for our grandmother. She's missing this date. And I'm like, I'll have a conversation, and let's say it's where you are. And you're like, dude, I'll drive out there. It's like 2 hours from me. I'm like, cool. So I'll tell the family, like, hey, I got my buddy Bam's going to come, and you show up. And the coolest thing is, like, the veteran communities has been so willing to do that.
For sure.
And the Indians don't care. They don't care if a white dude, black dude, Asian dude. They're just like, thank you for helping. Especially, they love soldiers. And the thing about the native community is, natives serve at a higher rate than any other race in our country. Mm-hmm. And so, like, warriors and veterans and native, that's like a huge thing in the native community. So they always, like, when I send a soldier, they're like, or Marine, you know, whatever, they're just like, oh yeah, this guy was a Navy SEAL. Like, and they just have like full faith, and like, he knows what he's doing. So I really relied on the veteran community at that. Yeah. And to be honest, it was kind of all over the place in the beginning. You know, we were doing everything from paying for, like, help somebody move, give you gas money to, like, drive, you know, go down there with his family, help him with the search. Yeah. You know, give them some money to buy fry bread buy food for because they want to cook for everybody, whatever. Just whatever I could do whatever we could do in a positive direction. And then kind of like turned into, you know, paying for therapy. And then I was just kind of like, man, I got into some things back and forth, the one that we're talking about in Hardin, and I was just like, I got to move in a different direction because this is also dangerous for my family. And like, I'm going through back and, you know, just weird things. So I was talking to, she's not my real sister, but her name's Micah Waisaki. And she is like my sister. She's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. She had a really rough upbringing. You know, her parents were very abusive, and she went through a lot in her as from a child. And then, you know, she's like a just badass cowboy, and she uses horses and horsemanship and rodeo and stuff to just like really just empower her and get things going. She gets in an abusive relationship as an adult, gets her way out of it, finally gets out of it, and then really starts to build herself up. So I met her, you know, a few years removed from this very violent, abusive relationship. Yep. Her whole career, she was training horses with this guy. They had a phenomenal business. Like, everything's gone. She's a few years into, like, almost starting over, you know. The only thing she's got is her reputation of a cowboy, like how good she is at stuff.
Yep.
So we're talking and we're just like, I'm sharing what I'm doing at War Party, and I was kind of looking for a cowboy mentor. Like I wanted to get better. I want to work more and get out there. And it was almost kind of like in a trade. Like, yeah, I want to help you. Want to help me? That's cool. And we came up with the idea of War Party Ranch, which is a nonprofit. And what that nonprofit is looking for like a long-term solution for some of the women that we've helped or that we could help. Also to almost preventative medicine in a sense, where like, an example, we have 3 or 4, we have for sure 3 teenage girls in our community outside Kiowa, Colorado. And we take them under our wing as much as we can. We do sponsorships for rodeo stuff. Yeah. We just try to get them around good people. When they're around men, I want the men they're around to show them what right looks like, so they understand that and they know how to be treated. Yep. Like you're a girl dad, so I think like that was one of my favorite things about getting to talk to you was like, dude, because girl dads, especially the like A-type personality like girl dads, are half to save America. Fucking boy dads ain't, because they're fucking don't know how to raise sons, and they're all fucked up. And you've never been loved in your life until you had a daughter. Like you might love your wife and unconditionally, and your wife's whatever, but it's like, bro, I'm telling you right now, and only dads with girl dads will be like, that. Bro, like I will fucking light myself on fire for that 100%. For those kids. Like, so
I'll find a new wife.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry,
but I mean, dude, you're right though, man. Like the dads that are doing it, man. I don't even want to get emotional. I just get emotional thinking about my kids, but. You're spot on. Yeah. I mean, they hit you different. They change you. The level of just love, man. There's nothing greater than a little girl giving you a hug.
So when you go back to like, the girls and the native girls, it's like, man, I see my daughters
for sure.
My mom, like it's like, and like even sometimes I like.
How do you deal with that though? I mean, dude, it's like,
I think so.
How do you separate it?
Or
are you even able to? I mean, I feel like that's some shit that I would bring home. Like,
so let me answer this other question, and I'll get back to you just so I can like relax and kind of think about it, because I don't want to like get a little emotional.
But that's just real though, dude.
No,
you're passionate about this, and you're a dad, and you got daughters.
Right.
It's like
So okay, so I'll stay with it. So for me, I turned my brain off for 20 years.
For sure.
Like I didn't even cry at my mom's funeral, man. Like I was just a brick, bro. Like I don't absorb things, the trauma I've seen, the things I've done. I'm just like, okay. Like, and I say that, and I say
healthy though.
No. And this is where I'm getting. Yeah. I say that with like, from a warrior's mindset of like, I'm not like, I'm good. Like it those things don't bother me. Yes, they bother me to a point, but I'm not like, So what was different about doing this was that one of the first people I talked to on the phone, I was helping a lady try to find her missing grandmother.
Okay.
And I talked to her, and then she's like, hey, I want you to talk to my aunt, blah, blah, blah. So I get on the phone with the aunt. And as soon as she says hello, and a lot of people probably don't understand how Indians talk, it sounded like I was talking to my mom.
Oh.
So I was like trying to like ball it up, like talking to this lady, and her accent's like my mother. She's very resi. She's like Indian, like I'm talking, and this lady, and she's telling me a story, and I'm like trying to hold it together. And again, it was powerful for me, and I appreciate those moments, because it's not that I didn't care when I was in the Army. It all affected me. Some of my buddies that are gone, like I live as hard as I can for them. Like I do a lot I'm so proud of that. Mm-hmm. The difference is the first answer to Ranger Creed is I recognized and I volunteered as a Ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession. That means they died doing what they fucking love doing. So now when you look at kids or women, like men are different, because I feel like you're more like you can defend yourself in a different manner. But kids and women,
helpless.
So now it's like to have that passion and to feel that emotion and do that. Like I want that because that keeps me more connected to what I'm doing with these women that I actually care, that I'm not this numb, like fucking war torn dude who's just like, yeah, it is what it is. Like when someone sends us an email or sends a DM and like I read it or I talk to, like it's fucking heavy, dude. So like I put, my own kids in there, like kids I'm around, like, like I met your daughter yesterday. It's like her, because I know what she looks like, she'll be in my mind. Mm-hmm. So like when I'm scanning pictures or someone goes missing, I'm looking at things. I'm like, dude, I feel like I don't want to get removed from that because I do know people who get really desensitized to things. And I have a friend, she's a detective in California and works just, sex cases for kids. And she's fucked up, man.
For sure.
But she's really good. And she needs to stay fucked up because her being fucked up about it and torn up over it
doesn't get the
allows her to do a good job.
Yeah.
Allows her to have passion and approach these things from a different way. So I try to approach it from a dad's perspective.
It's got to be hard.
The hardest thing to do from a dad's perspective is not fucking stab someone in their fucking
100%.
face. Like just rip their fucking face off. So that's the hardest part of just not being like, I'm going to fucking kill every person in this room because I know all you fucking suck. Regardless if you did something at some point. So fuck you. That's like that, like, we're not in Iraq, bro. Like,
I get it. No,
so
that's just the dad instinct.
Yeah, right. And so what I mean by like girl dads have an obligation in this country to show young ladies, starting with your daughter, your own daughter, what right looks like. She's getting what right looks like by the way you treat your wife, by the way you treat every woman you interact with, by the words that you say, the way you conduct yourself in public around women. She's taking it away from everything. Because if you do a good job, you'll make the bar so high, you're her superhero, that she'll never be able to find a dude. Like she's going to be struggling in mid-20s and have a lot going on, and she knows what right looks like. So she's constantly looking, comparing the men she's around to what right looks like. And that's what you want. You don't want to try to fill these gaps with things, right?
No.
So
because when they start filling gaps, that's when they get in trouble.
All of it. And you make bad decisions. And,
which they're going to make bad decisions, but it goes back to being that father and knowing that knowing that that your daughters could come to you when they make that mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what scares the shit out of me, bro. Yeah. It's like knowing my daughters are going to fuck up one day.
Yeah.
They all do.
Yeah.
But I want them to be able to come to me and be like, Dad, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, sit down. Like, how do we get through this? Like, that's the goal as a girl dad, is to have that relationship.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're kind of playing that like teammate, coach, but then authoritarian. Like you have to be able to like,
it's a
be able to like
line.
balance all these roles. Can't, but you need to be, but you can't. It's like you tiptoe the I don't know the word friend is that because I don't want to. You don't go across it, but you're close enough to it where you want to be personal and what you said, but at the same time, like you can't cross the.
But then at the same time, you have this war fighter mentality that we were raised with, to be these hard fucking grunt Marine whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have these little girls, and it's like, it took me a long time. Like, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
I don't have to be this guy to them.
No.
And so, but once you step into that next level as a man. And be like, okay, like, I don't have to be a drill instructor for my kids.
Right.
I don't have. They just want love and affection.
Yeah,
that's
like
all we need to give them.
Like I'm way harder on my boys than I am the daughters.
I tell my wife all the time, I would have no offense to anybody, but like my sons would probably grow up to be the most feminine, flute playing, like, because I would be so hard on them. Like I tell her all the time, I'd be that varsity blues dad.
Yeah.
And my wife's always like, God gave you exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And he's like, she goes, you needed girls.
Yeah.
And so, dude, it'll change you.
Yeah. And that's,
I'm
super blessed to be in the position I am, retiring and now being able to spend so much time with my younger kids and do that. But I like that question because I want to keep the emotion and the connection into it.
Yeah.
And something I realized like early on before we even started War Party Ranch was like, I looked at this of like, man, I want to create so much change and do this, but it's like, man, if you can help one person, if you can affect one person,
that's it.
Like that's crazy. It's so big. And that was kind of where I was on this struggle of like, I need something different than just helping somebody. So we got a woman out situation, sent her down to a safe house in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then she leaves the safe house. It was a rehab program, and 2 weeks later she OD'd in Pueblo, and I was like I was riding this high, like I fucking did some shit.
You made a difference, and then she's.
Yeah, and I was just like, and that's about the time I met Micah and was kind of like, what do we do? Yeah. So all of her experience and everything she's done, and she's always been this like staple in the community for young ladies to like always go to and just dump all their shit on, you know. And she's even taken in, she had like 2 15-year-old girl twins that lived with her for like 6 months because they were being, you know, sexually abused by their stepdad, and she's done some phenomenal work just in that space before even I met her. So we looked at War Party Ranch as being a way to really like, how do we fix what's broken? And the problem is like, especially with women, you know, guys, and we'll take like the veterans, for example. If you're a male veteran, it's like, in the classes of veteran you are, like, if you were a paperwork guy, like, you're at the bottom, right? Like, ain't nobody taking you fly fishing or fucking anything. If you're a fucking infantry guy, it's like, hey, now we'll fucking take you hunting. Like, you're flirting with like some shit, you know? You're missing something. Oh yeah, we'll get you whatever you want. If you're a special operations guy, like, oh fucking, you can do whatever the fuck you want all day, right? But if you're a woman, like I have a friend of mine, she's retiring from fucking the unit right now. Sergeant major, female sergeant major, retiring from the unit. I mean, it's not like she can go to, you name them. I'm not going to say their names, but you name the nonprofit, like she can't go. So it was that. It was a little bit of seeing that in the veteran space. Having female friends that I was willing to like take hunting, like Marissa, for example. Yeah. So, you know, taking Marissa hunting, and I'm not trying to have sex with her. Like, I don't, like, we're just friends. Like, it's just, I'm a normal dude. Like, I don't need that. And all my female friends would meet a guy to be like, oh, this guy's going to teach me how to shoot a bow, or this guy's going to teach me how to ride ATV. Yeah. And it's always like, well, until it doesn't turn sexual, now all of a sudden, like, now I'm not friends with Marissa no more because she didn't want to fuck. So, like, I'll just move on to the next. Well, that was like, and also like in my, not removing War Party out of it, that was like a theme with like female friends I had. And I was like, what the heck? And then, you know, I never met a woman that, if she was willing to share her story, the numbers they say 1 in 3 women have been abused in their lifetime. Well, then that means 1 in 3 men are abusers. And people hate that statistic because I'm like, well, 1, 2, 3, not it. But like, if we own it as men, then it does flip that thing around. The thing is I've never been with a group of women or met a woman that if she wasn't, that like didn't have something happen to her. Like, I've never, like, and maybe the woman who, you know, I'm not going to say she's just not telling the truth, but I'm saying, like, again, most women I've ever encountered, if they were on a personal level like that and talking about it, they shared some detail of a story of some kind of.
It's scary, man.
Super scary. So having daughters, you're just like, oh, you're fighting, you're learning how to fight. Since she's 3, I'm like, you're going to jiu-jitsu, Linda. Like, we're doing 100%. This stuff. So, you know, and so you think as a girl dad, you're just like, sucking all this in. And then, you know, back to War Party Ranch side of it, that was kind of the 3 things that were kind of aligning all at once. It was like, I'm realizing this going on with my female friends. Yeah. I'm realizing that like there are really good dudes out here that want to do things. It doesn't care if it's a dude or a man or whatever. We're friends. Let's have a good time. Let's teach each other. Let's make a community. And then at the same time, it was like I needed a different direction with War Party because I could not physically sustain this space I'm in because it's getting like I'm not law enforcement. Yeah, it could be vigilante-ish.
You're walking lines,
dude,
sure.
All the time. I'm like, I'm not supposed to have a gun on the res, but like I'm not going anywhere without being strapped, dude.
Right.
Like,
and then the fact if you grab somebody that even if they want to, you could probably get hit for kidnapping
yeah, dude. Like,
I mean, I'm sure there's some gray areas that you do not want to get caught up.
Absolutely. In. So I was trying to figure out how to like navigate this.
Yeah.
And then that happened to the lady that I told you about. And then Micah's like, hey, like she was looking at like, I want to kind of start a program or whatever. So we looked at how do we start a program where we can empower women through doing really cool things that we like to do that we're good at.
Yeah.
So shooting guns, you know, which goes into hunting, which goes into sustaining yourself, which goes into, you know, building all this confidence. Horses the same way, you know, controlling this 1,000-pound animal and doing things and learning and seeing the difference. Like day one, like you can't swing a rope, and then like 2 months later, like she's on a horse swinging a rope and catch like like just the progression there is a very tangible thing you can show them.
That's awesome.
Even if they don't want to stay, even if they're not going to grow up to be a cowboy or go.
They're learning something or.
Correct. They're putting these skills together and really gaining that confidence.
Building
a lot
confidence.
of it's that confidence, getting themselves back.
That's probably the main goal behind it, is just that self-confidence.
Absolutely. So what we've done is, you know, this is 2 years into it now on the nonprofit side.
Yep.
You know, we made a lot of mistakes in trying to figure this thing out. I was like, we don't know we're doing a nonprofit,
bro.
But
I could only imagine. We fucked up so much. I'm actually going to have the wife on, and we're going to go over like 10 years of wishes. If we have fucked up so much shit in the early days, like we look back now, we're like, what? I could only imagine. I know your struggles. I mean, we still.
I mean, dude, you name it. It's like, you know, you get an email from LegalZoom. I'm like, I fucking thought you did this. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like,
why is this not submitted?
Dude,
it's
name
costing
it.
how much?
You name it. You're like, you fucking kidding me? You know, check
yeah.
your bank account. You're like, what the fuck?
Especially when you don't have a board of a bunch of executives that run Fortune 500 company. You're doing it yourself, and your buddies are trying to help you. Trust me, dude. It's a grind.
No, and that's the boat we've been in. You know, and made mistakes even with not saying we made mistakes with the women, but we made mistakes when like what we thought we bit off more than we could chew. Like this lady was a little bit more than you know, there's things that's going on.
There's probably women, because we deal with it in the veteran world. We just dealt with one where there's stages for women, children, vets for those organizations, and we get some that they're not ready for our stage, even though we have so many programs.
We did exact. You're basically like. That is like the one sentence of like what we messed up on when I say it with the women, like same
for sure.
We were in a different state. Like
there's stages in healing,
absolutely,
or recovery, or just getting out of the middle. And sometimes we get these guys, and they're not ready for us.
Yeah.
We're okay. Now that you've gone through the healing, either with addiction, healing physically, then our stage. And it took us a while to realize that, because we try to help these guys, and it's like, I can't help a guy that's an alcoholic, and we're trying to bring him into the backcountry, and he's trying to detox off alcohol.
Right.
Like those were things that we had to learn, you know, so you're like, oh fuck, we got to get this guy back. Like we're not ready for that. So
no, 1,000%. So what we did was we transition in this year, 2024. 2024 is the year that we understand that, like, to do our main vision of having like this robust course that we can bring women into, you know, that's an operating budget that's probably 800 to just $1 million to get off the ground, probably $2 million to get off the ground, and probably an operating budget of 800,000 a year or something like that. That's something like Heroes and Horses or someone like that does, right? Like that's a giant operation. So understanding that, it's like, well, the other side of it is, you know, the difficulty of raising money. It's hard to ask for money. Everyone says they care about women, but it's like, bro, I'll, you know, tell you that like the donations don't exactly roll in the way they do with other organizations, other people. And it's not that people don't care. It's just that like everyone's like, oh, I love what you're doing, but it's like, dude, $1 would help me then. Just $1.
That's what people don't understand.
Like
is like, bro, like, if you just donated $1 and not take the Wounded Warrior projects, the Semper Fi, and that's what frustrates me in the charity world, is you have your poster charities, right? I'm sure there's the same in your world. That everybody's, oh, I donate, and it's like, those charities do not give a fuck about your donation.
So all the ones that have like highly paid staff.
Or they're paying.
I'm not talking about like operations staff. I'm not talking about the guy who's like operations staff that's like making a decent living, like $65,000 a year. Like, I'm not talking about that. We're talking about the motherfuckers that are making $250,000, $300,000,
quarter, $500,000 a year, plus bonuses, all that stuff. And these people are like proud to donate to that. And I constantly tell people, I'm like, stop. Find the mom and pop organizations. Your dollar is going to go so much farther. Well, with your grassroots organizations.
You know, from most of what we do with the ladies is out of our own pocket. But the reality is like, you know, what we've been able to make like $500 do is like, if I could like show people what we do at $500, they'd be like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but like where it is like.
Or people are like, man, you guys must be crushing. You're doing so much. It's like, no, we don't have corporate cars in an office. We run it out of our house.
Well, that was like kind of what happened to us with the Boot Barn deal,
Yeah.
because we, Boot Barn, we're super blessed that Boot Barn did this documentary with us and really highlighted the women and told the story, but it was also like it made us look way bigger than we really are.
For
It's like
sure.
I can't take in like this right now, and so
We
what
got
we're-
25 women. You're like, oh fuck, like
I know.
we're not that organized.
I know.
Yeah, I get it.
So we do have, like maybe 20 or 30 women in a program that we would say like that are under our umbrella
Yeah.
that we're working with, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like every day come ride horses, like wah, 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 we're doing all this stuff. Right. So what we're doing with 2024 is we moved into like the clinic model. So what the clinic model is each one is a different speciality or specificity or whatever the word you want to use there. So we're doing one in Weatherford, Texas, this month in April, and we're starting off. We're calling it a women's wellness retreat,
Okay.
and we're doing physical fitness, nutrition, firearms training. So doing zero from never held a weapon before to scenario-based shooting, and then the last day just more physical fitness and kind of team building, as well as we're doing some like small fire starting and camping basis stuff. The biggest thing these ladies get out of these clinics is the tribe of the other girls. It's not
100%.
always necessarily the training that's involved into it, right? And like I bring my daughter to these. Like my daughter is gonna teach a class on how to start a fire with water.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we try to make it as like friendly and family oriented, like to do this. And a lot of it isn't necessarily that they're going to get as much out of they're going to take some tidbits out of this weekend, right? Maybe jumpstart their shooting. Yeah, they learn how to firearm safety, and now they can like, yeah, I'm ready. I want to go buy a pistol now. I want to do that.
Confident to carry their own firearm. Yeah.
The other side of it is, we're having like 20 ladies come in, plus the instructors, plus the staff that we're using, and all those they'll be creating like their own group chat, and they'll be friends, and they'll support each other, and that's the bigger side of the clinics that I see versus actually like what we're doing. And then we're moving everything that's on our mission statement, basically every single thing that we dive into, we have a person that's their job. So like hunting, we have one lady who reps everything hunting, and she works on how do we facilitate something hunting for a lady this year in 2024. We have a hunting clinic where we're actually going to put on. We have like our all women's ranch bronc riding clinic. We're doing. The coolest thing too is that I'm super proud of, like my sister and what she does, is these girls are fucking badass cowgirls, man. So like we go workplace or go do things, like they're the real deal.
Cool. And
we want to keep that attitude and that mindset through, because again, you said when you were saying like maybe they weren't right at the right place, ready to be in our program. Same, like everything we're doing is not easy.
Yeah.
And we're trying to create this very gritty, like tough experience and feeling for you. So we don't ever want to get away from that, of how awesome these ladies are that work their whole life to get to this point as being a cowboy, to continue to use that in other expertises. So like the person who's doing hunting and teaching hunting isn't someone who's like, yeah, I'm a hunter. It's like, well, you hunted once. Like, no, it's like,
an expert.
and she's been hunting since she's like 4 with her dad. It's like one of your daughters, like, growing up and being like, I'm on a hunting program. So that's where we always want to try to stay. And then going back to that one question you asked me about being emotionally connected and emotionally tied to everything, I never want to lose sight of that, of being so big or some kind of robust program where we cannot be physically and emotionally connected to what we're doing in the community.
The frustrating part is that everybody wants to help till it's time to help in the charity world.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, and you're still in the, I want to say, infant stages, because you're still figuring shit out. And I feel like we just 10 years in, we just got out of the infant stage, especially with my wife and I running everything. And I think you're doing a really incredible thing, man. And I commend you for just trying to help and get into the world of women and children, because it's a scary, fucked up world.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. And I hate this question. This is one of my most hated questions that people ask me when I do podcasts with them. It's like, how can we help, or how can people help? And I'm just going to say it. Charities need money.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact, because I've been asked 1,000 times, and I hate being like, well, we need money, because it always makes you look like you need money. Correct. But at the end of the day, small charities need money, and they need funding. And if it's $1 or if it's $1,000 or whatever it is, we need funding. And especially nowadays, I mean, the way the economy is, it's rough. And you're trying to do as much good as you can on any way that you can. So besides obviously money, because that's what, and I tell people, like, that's what keeps the lights on in an organization. Like, because everybody's like, I want to volunteer. Like, not every organization needs volunteers all the time. Yes, some do. So like with us, we're very rep based. So all of our reps run everything. We just don't let random volunteers come in unless it's a big family event. I'm sure it's the same with you. You're not going to just bring people.
You can't just bring anybody to help.
Exactly. And so for anybody listening that is interested, and I want to get into how they can get in contact with you, but like besides obviously the funding, is there anything that anybody listening can help with? Or is it supplies, gear, women's stuff, clothing, toiletries? Like what do you guys need? Besides obviously sources, do you need men to like Roger up and be like, hey, I'm in this state, put me down? Like, dude, if it was a thing, put me down for Boise, Idaho. I'll travel anywhere in Idaho, or anything within, I'll travel anywhere for you, right? Like, I just want to help any way that I can. So besides obviously funding, that's what everybody needs. And what do you guys need to help your program, not even go to the next level, just to continue fighting the fight?
So I'd say the very first thing I always tell people is, don't be scared to stand up for what's right.
100%.
So when you're walking through the parking lot of the grocery store and the mom's got a baby halfway hanging out her arms and there's a toddler trying to run around, she's got a cart full of groceries, walk up to her and say, excuse me, ma'am, can I help you? And she might be freaked out, or she might be like, yeah, and she might hand you a fucking kid. And you're like, yes, ma'am.
Shit,
Okay. So get back to being who our grandfathers were. 100%. The guys who fucking who were on Okinawa Beach. My grandfather was 15 years old, landing amphibious assault boats. Be those men. And they would never walk past that.
A woman struggling.
Right? Or just what's right. Okay? So that's what I say. The first thing to do for everybody is stand up for what's right. You see something going on that's kind of bullshit, say something. Even if it's kids. Even if it's little kids acting like shit asses around your kids, like, say something. Hey, get it together. And whether they do it or don't, like you stand on your couch, you walk on the couch of your house. Yeah, I do. Well, not here. Get down. Whatever. So don't be scared to do that, and be that, right? That's where it starts.
Yes.
And then it molds into what you're saying. The volunteer thing's really hard because we're around women. We need to vet things. My thing for people is, if you have an idea or you have a resource that we could use in our clinic model or a way to do it, shoot us an email, hit us up, Instagram, whatever, because it might be as simple as this. Hey, I live in, you're in Idaho, and you're like, dude, my buddy said he wants to help. He's got like a property we just put bear bait on and shoot bears or whatever, but like it's just empty. Could you use it? And be like, oh yeah, we could do a clinic in Idaho that's a hunting clinic there. We can shoot long range stuff there.
You guys are cool at just getting doe tags, cow elk tag, anything to give women opportunity to be able to,
whether it's for hunting. And like I said, it's when people look at the mission statement, if they look at some of the things we have, whether it's self-defense, for shooting, whatever, if you have some resources or a way that you might be able to help, and it doesn't always have to be money, because sometimes it's as simple as like,
an opportunity.
And here's an example. The one we're doing in Weatherford, Texas, we have all the food paid for. And literally what it was someone on social media said, hey, my uncle has a barbecue place there. He's like, let me reach out. And he talked to his uncle. He told him what was doing. And his uncle's like, all the food's on me.
And that's all it takes.
We'll cater it.
So many people don't realize how easy it is to help just by, hey, Mom, can you bake a bunch of brownies then there's dessert for a night, right? Or hey, can we come out and cook for a night, or barbecue? People don't understand you don't need money to support an organization. And I want to say that because like I know that's what makes our world go round, but there's so many things that you can just calling somebody that has a ranch or has access to something, or somebody that's an expert in the field that you know, and just making a phone call that can change a charity's life.
Here's my example, another one for that, because this is something I see all over social media. Everyone wants to be a cowboy now, to include myself, right? Like I'm a fucking fake ass cowboy. I'm fucking. Sometimes I stay on, sometimes I don't. I don't know. But you know, the amount of people say, "Oh, I want to help," and "Oh, what you're doing is so inspiring." But then I see you on Instagram riding really fancy horses. You're competing and you ride nothing less than a $50,000 horse everywhere you go. You might not have a bunch of, like, I'm not saying that this person's super rich. What I'm saying is you have the ability to help. You work on a ranch, or your parents own a ranch with an indoor arena, and you've got a bunch of awesome freaking cow horses that you work and do. Like, what would be wrong with you saying, "Hey, War Party, I can host 5 girls.
Come out for a weekend.
Why don't you come out for the weekend? We'll do 5 women at my place. We'll figure it out. I don't know how we're gonna get there. Maybe they're all local girls from where I live here in Arizona, or maybe you do." That's what it takes. And the thing is like we're just so. I think people are so singular now, and they look at it again I hate that, like, the good deeds need to be recorded thing, like all over social media. It's like, here's a cheeseburger guy, and it's like, what are we doing? But what I mean by that example, I'm just trying to give people who are listening a little bit of an example of, like, hey, there are ways that we can do it. And it's the sky. Sometimes just like if you have an idea and you kind of see what we're doing, we're literally just trying to empower women. So think about your daughter, especially the girl dads. Think about your daughter. Think about your wife. You know, as they grow up, when your daughter is, you know, living in a different state or not around you, and she's 25 years old, what would you want her to be around? What could you do? And you're like, well, I got this, I have that. Like, another example, you got a big truck. Yeah, I don't know how to drive a big ass truck. You got a couple of trucks and trailers. Hey, why don't you come out to my property and we'll practice backing up trucks and trailers for a couple hours? Yeah. Or I got a skid loader, I got a skid steer and some dirt stuff. Let's move some dirt around with some girls. Right. Like, all of those things would be, you know, things that I think. Yeah, and I think sometimes we want to look at this very sexy object. What's the thing? Let's go kill a bull. And it's like, dude, most of these dudes just want to be out in the mountains, man. And they don't care if they shoot a doe or shoot, like,
they just want to learn.
They just want to learn. And that's what I'm saying is, like, just if someone has an idea what they think they can help, and those are just small examples. Like, we'll take some girls to go learn to do a driving course and backing up trailers and running a skid steer or whatever, because those are all skills that, like, are gonna feel cool and empowering and, like, shit, you know.
I'm gonna send you. We have a thing that we just created. I wish we would have done this years ago, and I'm gonna send it to you so you can copy it.
Heck yeah.
We call it a trip slip.
Yeah.
And that way, when anybody's like, "Man, I really want to help," you know what I do? I send it to them.
Oh, cool.
And it's every question that you're gonna have for them, and then they'll have for you.
Oh,
it's
nice.
a breakdown, and it literally, they fill it out, and then you have. We had a guy we had one of our first dudes test it out, just for an example. He's a Marine. He's into flint napping. He makes arrowheads.
Yeah, cool.
And he's a buddy of mine, and his brother's this big whiskey influencer. And he's like, "Man, I really want to just teach guys how to do this." So we called it Whiskey on the Rocks. He literally filled it out.
So cool.
Airbnb, times, dates, airport, everything. Now there's no excuse. So I want to definitely get you that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you just send it, "Man, I have this ranch and we could hunt." And you're going to see over the years, so many people have all these opportunities, and they go away.
Yeah.
Because you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour. They have 1,000,000,
absolutely.
and then you cross paths again at the next year's show. Like, "Man, we got to get guys out." So we got to the point where it's like, here.
Yeah.
Here's
I like
the
that.
link. So I'll send it to you. So now when people are like, "Dude, I got this ranch. We should really," here's a link. Fill it out. We're there. I'll just give me dates. That's all I need are hard dates, and we'll make it happen. So I want to definitely get you lined up with that, and that'll help you so much, because every time someone reaches out, you send it to them, and it's like, okay, here you go. It goes right in the system, and so, but dude, like, you're an incredible person, man. You've accomplished an absolute fuck ton in your life, and I would be very proud if I were you. And I know you're definitely got a lot going on. You're a proud dad and husband, and you've got an organization going. So I hope nothing but the best for you. If anybody needs to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
So my social media, they can hit me up on Instagram.
Yep, we'll link everything on there. Any emails, websites?
Yeah, email. So warpartymovement.com. That's how we connect us. There's a connect, the contact us on War Party Movement, and then warpartymovement.org is the nonprofit side, but they're both kind of one and the same. Both websites will kind of toss you around.
You got
to
all
each
your
other one.
apparel and everything on there. So if somebody
Yeah.
wants to support, they can just go buy a shirt. They can make a donation, everything off of there.
You can make donations on the warpartymovement.org one has the donate now buttons.
Yep.
The War Party Movement, because that is an LLC, we're not taking donations there, but we do special like one-off drops apparel, and then we also have like small stuff, flags and stickers and patches and little odds and ends there. And the really cool thing about that is all that money, like worst business model ever. I give all my money to the charity.
I'm right there with you.
but everything goes to that. And full transparency, I'm really proud about this one. We have a lady that we've been working with, helped her get out of a deal. She's now an employee of War Party Movement.
Cool.
So she gets paid money, like
love
actual
that.
money in her pocket.
I love
which
that,
is
man.
Cool.
And that's how it should be. And I know a lot of organizations get scrutinized because of the big organizations ruining. But at the end of the day, people only volunteer for so long. If it's not their passion, they don't last very long. And you have to take care of people, and you have to take care of your staff. And so it's a smart thing that you're doing now. It took me a long time to figure that out because we dollar in, dollar out for years, and then it just got to the point where we were just a revolving door of volunteers and help. And now it's like, okay, we gotta square the wings. But it's good, man. I mean, that's the end goal for us as well, is to take these vets that were one time broken and bruised and battered, and then now we want them running their own programs and eventually taking over everything one day. So I know. Yeah. So, dude, I really want to thank you for coming on. I know this was a long one.
Thank you. Sorry, I talked for 8 hours. I think I need a hotel room tonight.
Yeah, right. You staying again? So, you're supposed to be on your way to Montana right now. But, dude, thank you. You're a pretty badass dude, man.
No,
and
thank you.
I hope nothing but the success in everything you got going on. We're definitely going to help out any way we can as far as what we're doing. We would love to get stuff going on. We'll talk all that offline. So,
well, thank you for you and your family, dude. Freaking awesome.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Okay.